Greetings, everyone. My Gavanin, for those of you who speak Elvish, means well met. So today's video is just going to be really a free base, questions and answers, and also just give my perspective on things. So feel free in the chat to leave your comments and your thoughts. You know, it has been, I think, on my channel, kind of an intense few days where I talked about some things that might scare people in the idea of what the Pleiadians really believe and what's also part of their mission and what they're trying to help humans accomplish. For many people that grew up with Christianity and with other types of religion, this could be kind of a scary thing. So I wanted to give this space to be able to talk about things and just bring my perspectives and, to get some of your questions maybe answered. So I have a few questions that I wrote down that people asked yesterday in my live video, but I did not get a chance to answer. So I'm just going to go through these first, and then I will get to all of you and see if you have any of your own thoughts or comments or questions that you want me to read out loud. Okay, so the first question that came onto my Christ consciousness video was the idea of, was Jesus born of a Virgin Mary? And what are my thoughts? Because since the Pleiadians say that Jesus was a normal human being, then how could he be born of a Virgin Mary? And what does that truly mean, for life, for us? So I did realize, a long time ago, I knew this, that there are other types of gods that have been said to be born of a virgin. And I have a list here that I can read to you, because I do think that this is a pattern that takes place within religion, that if they're trying to prop a particular figure up, they're going to make the figure almost, so divine and in a way that they wouldn't be able to be born like a normal human. So here are a few gods, or I guess ascended masters or deities that have been born of a virgin. So Horus of ancient Egypt was born on the 25th of December by a virgin, and that was 3,000 years before Jesus. Buddha is said to be born December 25th by a virgin around 563 years before Jesus. Krishna, an Indian god, born 25th of December by a virgin around 900 years before Jesus. Zarathustra, an Iranian god, he was born the 25th of December by a virgin around 1,000 years before Jesus. Hercules, a Greek god, born 25th December by a virgin around 800 years before Jesus. Now, I'm not sure how correct that is, because what I know about Greek mythology is that I thought Hercules was a son of Zeus, so he did father Hercules. That's what I definitely thought, but I'll have to check with that. Mithra, a Persian god, born 25th of December by a virgin 600 years before Jesus. Dionysus was said to be a Greek god, born 25th December by a virgin around 500 years before Jesus. So do I think that Jesus was born of a virgin? Knowing our reality and how we live and how life has to be created in the womb of a woman, I would say that no, but I do believe that it was symbolic for Mary. I think that the mother of Jesus was somebody that was really well known. She herself may have been a mystic, or may have been somebody that was a seer back then, and she had certain types of psychic abilities or powers that I think people recognized within her and thought that she was very pure and very innocent, when really it comes down to maybe she was just very good with listening to source and her higher self, and she didn't act like a fool, and she behaved in a way that was very innocent or very good to people within the village. And maybe that's how she started to get her reputation as a virgin, because virgin also means pure. And so not only does it mean the idea of, Jesus coming from her without being actually reproduced in the normal way that humans are, but this might have been more of a symbolic meaning. So that's my perspective on it, and we can definitely go to the comments and I'll see what you guys think. The other question I had about Jesus was, what can one do if they did the unforgivable blasphemy against the Holy Spirit? Well, I mean, this is such a layered question. For me, the idea of what is blasphemy? Blasphemy actually means to talk badly about a god, to go against the wishes of a god. And here's where I get really logical with this, is that what is the most important thing in the universe? What is the bigger message of life in the universe? Is that life is seated on all types of different planets. And so when you are moving a line to life, you're not destroying others' lives. You're allowing the collective to move forwards and to progress, and you're not trying to hinder that growth. I believe that you are working towards what the universe wants. And so the idea of blasphemy doesn't really quite sit with me, because I don't believe that freedom of speech is something that we can take away from people just because, for the sake of not saying something bad or sinful against maybe one of the figures or the deities. So for me, blasphemy does not truly exist. It is an idea that has been made up by the religious groups because it does keep people in check. When you try to threaten people and say, if you blaspheme, or if you say this against the church, or if you do this, then it can cause a lot of issues and a lot of problems for people. And I think that it keeps a sense of control over others. So I do believe that that's more what blasphemy really means, because I don't think that you can ever talk badly about creation itself or life itself or the universe itself unless you harm yourself, because you are part of it. So it's really about just seeing everything as all as one. And so blasphemy doesn't really exist as long as you have self-respect for yourself and for others, and for the universe that you are part of. And if you don't have respect for the universe, and if you hate life, then why even be here? And these are some of the kind of deeper existential questions to ask yourself. But the idea of unforgivable sins, I don't believe in. The reason why I don't believe in unforgivable sins is because we know in our lives that we make mistakes and we learn from them. And really, that's the goal, is that you can never really make an eternal mistake, but you have many lifetimes. You have forever. You have an infinity, really, to move along the spiral of spiritual development. Now, here's the issue, is that if someone does not want to spiritually develop, and they keep making the same mistakes again and again and again in every single, incarnation and lifetime, then their lives will be hard. The experience will be difficult. It has to follow the laws of the reality that you create through your thoughts and through your actions. So it's going to be a hard life. So if you want to actually enjoy yourself and have a good time wherever you are, then I would say that it's about living a life that's more aligned to doing good and being at peace and being one with everything in the cosmos. And I think that is really the most important thing, and that there is no such thing as eternal sin or forever sinning, because you always will have another lifetime, another incarnation to make it up and to learn. we are here to learn. And it's kind of reflected in our lives because we go to school to learn. And it really is about expanding the consciousness. And in some way, we are helping the universe together expand. We, as a collective universe, are expanding our consciousness, because the universe is now thought to be a sentient or aware universe. So it's really exciting, the new age that we're in, so that we can start to understand these things more. But I do think that it was important in some way to have the idea of choices and consequences, and religion put a spin on it in the idea that it would affect your afterlife. And I do believe it will affect your afterlife, but it's not that you're going to be put in a room with fire and demons poking you. It is that you are going to experience either the same thing that you did to another, so that you may learn the truth of your actions, or you may experience a harder life until you fall on your knees within that hard life and you surrender and you let go of your ego and you become one with the all. There's a lot of different ways that you can experience, hell or the consequence of sinning. So there is some wisdom. I think that it was important that religion establish some type of moral boundaries. Otherwise, people would make this earth a living hell, and it would be really difficult for all souls. And I think only when you get to the point where you really are truly conscious and aware and connected to source, that's when you can live on a planet and in a civilization without any type of fear of choices or consequences, because you really focus on the present. And so you just live your life in the present moment rather than having any kind of fear. But in the beginning stages of a species, there is probably a need for setting boundaries with morality. And I think that was important, but it becomes too, I think, harmful to people that when they grow up in a family, or when they grow up in a church, or when they grow up in a synagogue or a mosque, when their families or their religious leaders are too hard on them, and it leaves people with emotional trauma. And that is something that they're going to have to heal from. So I think that is also a problem that religion has, because I was reading somebody other comment on my video the other day, and she said, I think sometimes religion has a really bad effect on people because it sent me to the hospital. Or she just kind of indirectly said, or what if your family members send you to the hospital? And why would that be? It's because your family members might make you feel so guilty or so bad or so evil of a person that you start to get depressed, and you start thinking that your existence doesn't matter and that you're not lovable or you're not good. And there's a soul need for souls to feel good, to feel like they are good, because ultimately the universe is life expanding, and that's goodness. I mean, positive energy is putting something new out there or adding to the whole, and negative energy is taking away. So I think souls in general are looking for the positive, are looking for either the positive experiences or to feel like they are positively aligned people. There might be some people that want to feel like they're negatively aligned, but I'm not really sure how that can be represented in a life for the whole life, like maybe a little bit of the lifetime, but not maybe the whole life. But I think that is really my perspective about that. And there's another question that goes along with it. When Jesus said his Father, what did he really mean? Right. I mean, the words are hard, right? Because some people might not see the universe as a father or a mother even, but as a source. So there's lots of different ways that we can use our language that can determine the way that we interpret things. So when Jesus said, my Father, what it did to a lot of people that really honed onto that word was made God a very masculine energy, that was defined by what was males in society and how they acted as a father or as a ruler or a tyrant. So the Abrahamic God slowly took on a male persona and male personality, and not a male that was balanced with the feminine, but a male that was a king god, a tyrant god. And that became probably the reason why religion did have some problems, was that there wasn't that feminine energy coming in. Now, the pagans represent those that usually have a nice balance of masculine and feminine gods in their different ideologies around the world. But generally, Earth is a mother, and there's a feminine quality even to the universe or to the Great Spirit. So there is a balance. Like with the Native Americans, it was a kind of a balance of the feminine and the masculine qualities, and that was the Great Spirit. But with Abrahamic religions, because of the word father, people took it very, very literally, like a man in the sky with a beard, sitting up high, and like a father overall. And so that could have been a language barrier. And I think that Jesus meant it more poetically, but maybe he didn't. And maybe he meant to say father because that's how he viewed the universe. But I would say that the way that you choose to individually connect to source, whether it be a masculine energy or a feminine energy, or a little mix of both, or totally neutral with absolutely no personality, and really just kind of a source of like light or energy that exudes outwards, it's all how you see it. That's kind of my perspective, is I tend to see it, I feel it in me as very neutral, but also very aware and full of love and light, and wants to, experience through us. So that's how I see it. But I think that my father could be taken either very literally, or it can be taken very symbolically. And it can also be taken lightly, where you don't see it as just the father, but you see it as, a little mix of both, or a neutral type of energy source. This is the other question here. Since Islam doesn't believe in Jesus, how are they part of the Abrahamic gods? So that's a really great question. Somebody emailed me about that, and I have some experience with this, so I can tell you. So yes, it's true. Islam came later after Judaism and Christianity. So Islam did make Jesus a human in a way, but they still had him born of a virgin, but he was not someone to worship, that he was only a servant or a prophet of the God. So as the ages, basically people grew up, and as the ages went on, the consciousness expanded. And so when Islam came around, there was a different way of seeing Jesus, but generally the Abrahamic God is Allah, and it's still a very masculine form in many Muslim countries. That's just how it is. And that's what provided the patriarchy that we see today, the idea of men ruling in religion and ruling at the head of the family. And, I think that it's an equal partnership. So I think that this is where religion had a lot of say in the way that society has molded itself. So when we get rid of the tight control of religion, of the Abrahamic gods, of the masculine energy, we will open up to a more equal energy on earth. And it will really help, because unfortunately, within some of these Muslim countries, or those that really hold on to the patriarch figure of God or Allah, then it has caused, like you see, some terrible things in the idea of men ruling over women and being in charge of everything. And this has really made women I think they're a step behind other countries, although they themselves are very intelligent, very aware, and they are at the same level of the world consciously, but they are forced by fear of their life or fear of just making their family angry and disowning them. Then they have to step back and they have to follow the patriarch type of religion of Islam. So that's the whole thing, is that the Abrahamic religions have all that in common, that God is a very masculine God, because in the books it is he. It is always he, or it is we, which is interesting in the Quran. Sometimes it's we. So it's like God is talking from a collective voice. But generally, when you talk about Allah, you say he. When you talk about the God of the Abrahamic text, you say he. And we really kind of need to get rid of those pronouns if we want to move away from the personality that tends to divide humanity into feminine and masculine. And so that is, I think, the end of that questions. Yeah, there. Oh, this was the other one too. So someone asked me if Jesus, if he died, did he come back to life? Because there were historical accounts. And so what did I get from a download from that? So I thought about this. And for some reason, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it. This is so controversial, but I'm going to say it, that I do believe that he was put to death, or that they tried to put him to death. And I believe that he was close to death, but because he himself was so full of life, I believe that he did not truly die, but that he was in the tomb and people came that were his followers, and they kept it secret for a long time, and they helped him hide away. And so I do believe that. I do not believe that the Merovingi, or the Merovingi bloodline, the blue bloodline of the royals, is part of Jesus. I don't think that, and I think that sometimes they think they are, but I think that I do feel that he stayed on earth for a little bit longer in order to spread some more of the teachings and build kind of the first church. And then from there, who knows? But I think that there was a poetic message saying that he came back to life and he was ascended by angels, and he's ascended to heaven. I think symbolically that means that he was almost at death and he came back from death, or his consciousness came back into his body, because I have personal experience with this, you all. I do. I mean, I know what it's like to feel like your consciousness is fading away and you're just like, okay, my time's to go. I know what it's like, because I almost died of severe dehydration and my organs were shutting down, and I made the conscious choice to let go of my body. And I said, okay, I'm ready. And I put my head against a wall in a spa, and I said, I'm ready to go. And I went through this tunnel with faces on either side, letting me know that this is what I was going to miss if I was going to leave. And I decided to come back into my body. So I believe that Jesus might have had an experience like that, taught about the consciousness more when he came back. And then the ascension was more of a poetic understanding of what he went through and how he raised himself to a whole new dimension of reality when he experienced the afterlife in a way, and coming back, in his consciousness. And I think that the church ended up making him a figure that went away. And I think that they just honed on to that, because then that provided the power structure of the church. And if Jesus went to heaven and he was sitting on the throne of God, and he was, if nobody else could get through him, to heaven through him, except through him, then the church had the power. And this is when we had the Knight Templars start, and they started persecuting people around the world and taking over the pagan villages. And it was a really sad time. Something that we do not ever want to repeat in humanity is the religious persecution. To kill another human being for an imaginary perception of what you believe source is something that we cannot do any longer if we want to ever move forwards into the new earth and even be truly able to relate to advanced civilizations of aliens that we so want to, because they don't act that way. That is very archaic and barbarian, and it is time that we don't do that. And the fairies of the past and the elves were driven underground and away from this earth because of the religious persecution, not only just expanding on their forests and taking over their land and being really loud humans that didn't care about the earth at that time, but it was also religious persecution that many of the souls that were witches or were also related to the elves and fairy through blood, they were put to death, or they were tortured, or they were banished, and eventually they had to go. And this is something that I think in many ways that the fairy souls and elven souls that are here today are part of that experience and coming back and bringing forwards this more of this harmony with humans now, because it's been a long time since we were persecuted against. Okay, so I think I answered that question, but those are my deepest thoughts. Now, if Jesus, I will give another perspective. If Jesus did die, then I believe that they still made him a figure of ascension to heaven, and then the church basically built around that power structure of Jesus. So either way, if Jesus lived or Jesus died, that's not really the important aspect of it, but it's what happened afterwards. What happened when man that was not as enlightened as Jesus was started to create churches and foundations around that Jesus structure. And I think that's the sad part. And I think that's where religion went wrong. Instead of really listening to Jesus's teachings on, the mountaintop and the streets, then these golden churches were built, and a really strange priestcraft was created. And there's not always such a bad thing, because it can really be helpful for people that go through a hard time. It's great to be able to have a place like a monastery or a temple or a church where you can gather and you can give your thoughts, your deeper thoughts, about the universe, about your life, and about others. And I think that that's really important. And I think that the confessions helped people, like psychology, that if you go and you talk to a priest, you're going to feel better. It's not that your sins are absolved from you just because this man said that they were. It's because with you recognizing that you made a mistake, you're already halfway there to improving and learning your lesson and gaining wisdom from that experience. So in some way, yes, you are kind of on the way to cleanse yourself of sins, but it's not the priests that do it. It's not Jesus that does it. It's you. You did it. You did that hard work. And that's something that I think we need to bring back to the people, is that power. Okay, so I think I told you my perspective. Now, I cannot wait to see your comments here. And I was prepared, if anybody wants to, debate me or show a different perspective, this is that free time today that I had, and I wanted to do this with you all. Hint of sage. Did I miss something? Okay, so yesterday's video was on Christ consciousness and what the Pleiadians said about Jesus in the original reports of the idea of why their mission is to help alleviate the world from a a really tough grasp of religion, and it's more so to teach that Jesus was a human. So that's kind of what I'm piggybacking on. And today is all about questions about spirituality in general, or Jesus, or whatever. And these were the questions that people asked me yesterday. So I hope that explained to you what is going on now. White Fairy Queen, should I go ahead and ask my questions now, or was that supposed to be? No. At the same time, I was just going to ask. I'm going to answer you now, so you can write it whenever. Let's see. Are you not hearing any auto? Hello? Testing, testing. I think other people are hearing auto. My auto is working, so hint to Sage, maybe your internet was slow. But yeah, my auto is on. Okay, more Winden. I would like to know more about this Christ consciousness. I'm not Christian, so does that affect me? I grew up Christian, though. However, I want to know where someone like me would stand. Christ consciousness has many other names. It's the crown chakra. It is enlightenment or awareness. It is awakened state. Christ consciousness is the ability to know that when you hurt someone else, you are ultimately hurting yourself. So there are consequences to your choices of how you treat others, because it will affect you inside psychically. You can feel it empathically. So a person that enters Christ consciousness, they're going to have many psychic abilities start to be realized within them. They will awaken their ability for telepathy, and this is going to be, slow and gradual. It will become more powerful the more and more practice and the more that you use it. But you'll have telepathy, you'll have empathy, and you'll have a clear knowing, cognizance, and your intuition will be in touch with you at all times. Basically, you'll be in touch with your intuition. So these are the different states of vibration, higher vibrations that you enter in when you are at Christ consciousness. And then that affects your reality. Your reality becomes one where your sensory experience is more heightened, and you're more aware of things, and you see through things. You can see through illusions and lies. And so it's very easy to experience that, whether you're a Christian or not. This is really about just the human being in general. Any type of soul is going to experience, when they reach the Christ consciousness, a feeling of divine love and connection to everything in the universe. Now, you may not feel it 24/7, but the ultimate goal would be to get more consistent with it, so that you don't have the ups and downs of feeling one with the universe and then feeling like no one loves you, and feeling one with the universe and no one loves you. You want to try to get more consistent as you go through your awakening process. So Christ consciousness is really just it's a phrase that can take Jesus as an example and show where his consciousness was, with everything that I read yesterday about the way that he treated people. He fed people that were hungry. He was caring and cared for the animals on earth and wanted people to care for them. He was against killing, against judgment. He was against the woman who was being stoned. And I think that, when you're at that level of no judgment, in terms of no judgment of how bad a person is, but you see maybe where they can improve, but you don't judge them for that, and you understand where they are, and also where you can feel kind of the energies of others. That's Christ consciousness. And also just divine love and feeling one with everything. So I hope that explained everything there. And then White Fairy Queen. Wow, I had no idea there were so many individuals born of a virgin like Jesus. Yes, it's a pattern. It is, because it's the only way to provide a figure as being divine. And then that's when humans start to worship them. And it's really just about seeing all souls as equal now, and that all our value is the same. And I think that that's the most important thing. David Sebastian, can you sell your soul? And why do artists say that in songs? Oh, that's a great question. Can you sell your soul? Okay, so this is a really good question because I've thought about this a while. And yes, I know artists have kind of said that they have. What I believe is going on is like you yourself, part of existence. And let's go to the 11th dimension of reality. You can't lose your consciousness. You are existence itself, having a personal experience. I am existence itself, having a personal experience, and we are relating to each other through that way. But when you are in an unconscious state of that, you can feel like your soul can belong to someone else. But if you are sovereign within yourself, if you know that you are already part of the universe and the cosmos, then you could never lose your soul. Never. But you can become unconscious of it and unaware of it, kind of the path that you take. And especially if you get too much into the material world and you start really just thinking about money all the time and about the material wealth and the status that you have on earth, it distracts you sometimes. And it's like your priority and your focus is on that. So then you will feel like your soul is not there, that it belongs to these music companies or these entertainment companies that really treat a lot of their actors and musicians really badly, because they themselves are all about the money. And so, there's this balance where not everything about money in the material world is bad, and it won't distract you. But if you don't have the spiritual life and the energetic life, and if you don't know that you're connected and you are from source, then you're going to forget about that. So I do believe that people can experience a loss of soul, but in reality, they don't actually lose their soul. But it's about different levels of awareness about that. So I hope that answered your question there. And I think that really what is going on when musicians talk about selling their soul is that I think that they are trying to warn. It's like another voice for us, because everything is a mirror. So I think that some of the musicians that have talked about it, like Michael Jackson did, I know Aaliyah did, and isn't it strange how a lot of those musicians end up dead? But a lot of the musicians and a lot of actors talk badly about the system of greed on earth, and they are acting as a mirror and a messenger to all of us. So I believe that they use the dramatic expression that they sold their soul to the devil, because the devil symbolizes the material world, completely infused with ruling and taking over the material world, right? And it's just like in the Silmarillion, it's Melkor. He's only concerned about ruling on Arda, does not care about the whole cosmos of Eru that he comes from Eru's mind, but he only cares about ruling people on earth. And so the devil symbolizes that. I don't believe that there's actually a true figure of a devil, but that it is energy that is directed more towards the physical worship of this material world. It's those, okay, so anybody who basically prioritizes money over human life, they are basically working for the devil in that way, in the idea that they're pushing for more materialism versus the energetic and spiritual world. And that's, I think that they're just giving that message to us that there's a lot of greed in those systems of the entertainment world and the music world. And we really need to look at that as a society. And I think that that's the bigger message. Right, let's see. hint of sage, to be a Christ, you have to, sorry, I just jumped all the way down here. I'm so sorry. To be a Christ, you have a direct link to God in your own heart. God's love keeps you cared for and allows you to care for others in a healthy way. We aren't Jesus, but each enlightened. Right. So the Pleiadians are actually saying that Jesus is a normal human being, and that the state of consciousness that Jesus was able to awaken to, and just the way that he treated his fellow man, is something that is within all of us. So it's about not seeing Jesus as different. Like, for me, I do not see Jesus as better or more important than White Fairy Queen, my friend Roxanne, or Sean Mackenzie. And I think that brings in an element of equality energetically. And that has really helped my life. I feel one with the cosmos, and I've been less depressed, and all these things, because it is about raising my consciousness through the awareness of equality of all souls. And that's where the Pleiadians are trying to help humanity get to. And that's part of my mission, and why I feel I am part of, them as a starseed. So I hope that kind of helped explain more. White Fairy Queen, I didn't hear you mention anything about the story of Jesus raising from the dead after he died according to Christianity. Well, that was a question somebody asked me about, was that if he came back and if he ascended, because we have all this historical research that he was, that his tomb was found empty, and women have said that he left the tomb. And I do believe that he had some help. I think that there was a secret a group that was trying to protect him, and maybe they helped him and they healed him back to health. And maybe he survived for quite many years, so that more teachings could be spread, and that he could do a better job of spreading the wisdom on earth. But that's just my feeling. I don't know. I can't remember back then. I wasn't at that time there. But I do believe that the ascension idea is more symbolic, because we all can reach that state of ascension. And I know that's very Gnostic of me to say that, because the Christian Gnostics believe that the ascension is available to all men and all women, but it is about where your consciousness goes. But I am not necessarily connected to the Gnostics, but I will say that I do understand them in the way that they chose to see Jesus in a more mystical approach versus maybe what more of the church saw them as. And that's why the church and the Freemasons and the Gnostics, they ended up being enemies for quite a long time, but now they probably work with each other. But because times have changed, and there's lots of different routes of connections between the groups. I don't even want to try to unravel it all, but I think that that's really what's going on in this world. Sean Mackenzie, with regards to virgin birth, it's a difficult subject, pure spirituality to the processes of the physical world. It is difficult to subject pure spirituality to the processes of this physical world. I agree, Sean. And I think that it was more, it's not that Mary did nothing wrong. I mean, she's not a robot, right? And we always are learning and we're growing. But I think that Mary probably was at a caliber of a woman in order to receive such a reputation and to have a son like Jesus, who did awaken around his peers and try to awaken his peers. I think that our family bloodline has a lot to do with our consciousness that we are born into, because you have to be born into, I think, a state of capacity of the consciousness that you will carry, because your mother holds that vibration that you are then attracted to as a soul, you're attracted to come into in the world. So I think that, even though parents sometimes make a lot of mistakes and treat maybe their children horribly and things like that, it's always the next generation that's just a little bit more wiser, a little bit more capable, I think, of reaching higher vibrations. And we just go up and up and up and up and up and up and up until we get to source, and everything is fully accessible to us. So Tolkien actually modeled Galadriel and some of his other female characters after the Mother Mary. And I think what he talked about that was more important was the idea of the innocence and the purity, not so much the virginal birth. It's not like he made Galadriel a virgin or he made Arwen a virgin, because she was a mother too. But there was an element of purity within his elven women that he tried to, I guess, convey. And it was because of his love of Mother Mary, which the Catholics tend to really focus on, because they're focusing more on with that feminine aspect and also the masculine of God too. But Catholicism does have that mix, whereas regular Christianity sometimes has just the Father. So I think that maybe that's what Tolkien really meant, and that's how I see it. Roxanne Victor, Kimberell, FYI, okay. Oh, you sent me a message? Great. Okay, so I will take a look. I'm not very good with my messenger sometimes. White Fairy Queen. Also, you mentioned, was Jesus telling Peter to feed his sheep? You felt it was taking care of animals. I grew up that it was calling people his sheep. I think it could be both. I do, because yes, you could see it as perspective of like, feed my followers who are sheep, but it can also mean we'll feed the sheep on earth too, feed the animals and take care of everything. Basically, how I saw it is take care of everything outside of just Jesus. Like, if you love Jesus, Peter, well then take care of everything. Don't just take care of me. Because that was a problem, was that some of the disciples and the followers were starting to worship just Jesus. And he was like, stop. Take care of the people, take care of the animals, treat people kindly, and you will do me service, because I am in service and doing service for the collective. And I think I saw it in both perspectives, yes. Let's see. Okay, Dylan, a lot of us young people, the builders, are being split with today's morals, but I found my golden egg. Oh, well, good. If you want to share what your golden egg is, you can. Good. Yeah, I think a lot of the young souls are really coming in and waking up, and not truly young, but playing the role of the young ones, evolving from children now, and now you're in teenage years. I think you are born in an age where you get to see all of this, and you have so much information at your fingertips. And, I've seen it firsthand, evidence that kids are very aware and more full of knowledge than they ever were. And we're just going to keep on expanding that way with humanity. And that's a really great thing about technology, is that it has made people, there's downsides and there's upsides, right? But it has made kids be able to get information really fast and have a really wide scope of knowledge in a short amount of time. So, teenagers and even kids, they know so much today. I think it's a reflection of how we're evolving. And then let's see. So you can share your golden egg if you want. White Fairy Queen. I grew up with a huge amount of fear of going to hell if I did something wrong when I started as an adult. Being interested in Wicca and the goddess, I got blinding headaches and was frozen in fear. Yeah, that is the damage that religion can sometimes do. Some people are very fortunate where they grow up in a family that is more spiritual in their interpretation, and they're very open-minded to allow their children to choose their own path, and they don't force religion on them. But some parents are just not at that place, and then they ended up forcing religion on them. And it does make either people resent that, or it ends up making them rebel, or it ends up making them, find a new path and learning from that. And I would say that it's really great that you were able to, get away from that. And I know it's difficult because you sometimes fear like you're going to upset your family. And it's really hard because the family obligation, I think, is like what really holds people into their certain religious sects. I was fortunate where I had a father that was really against dogma. Like he really did not want, I had friends who wanted me to go to churches, and he was like, you can go, but I don't want it to become like a normal thing. So he wanted to teach me more about spirituality and things like that. So that really helped me. But at the same time, I know that when we get older and we make our own decisions, we can then feel more free. So I think that it's really important that we liberate ourselves in many ways, also from our parents, but also with love. You can do it in a way where you're like, Mom, Dad, I love you, but this is just not the path for me. And, if you do all things with love, then you'll see that it makes it easier to walk away from people or to choose your own way. And it's just, even though people are angry at you and upset, you just have to keep on going. And that's really all that you can really do. Okay, Sola V. It can come down to semantics. We need to look deeper. Yeah, it is about semantics, right? It's about the language that is being used, and then how people interpret that language. Like the Father has really confused people. And that is something that I think you can look at it in many different ways. And so there's so many language barriers from some of the religious texts that you do have to have kind of a mystical eye in a way, like where you see things past their concrete meaning, and you can see things more in a symbolic nature. And then that's when you don't hold on to the literal words of the books, but you see it more symbolically. So that's really what has helped me, understand the books in a way. And that's why I guess I never really held on to the religious books very literally. So that's what I can say about that. But yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so Dylan, that's what was frozen. The bad guys wanted to freeze our DNA. Might have to put some more information down there, Dylan. GPT Polite, my personal diary, much clarity on the father aspect. Good to hear this. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, I know that it's very controversial, but it's what I see as the core of the patriarch and how that caused such a problem for women and also for men, because now men are struggling to kind of regain that balance again. There are a lot of really great men and good, everybody has some goodness in them, but there are a lot of sensitive men. There are a lot of good-natured men and good-hearted men that would never lift a hand against a woman. And so now what the patriarch has done is it makes them now focus trying to rebalance all of the uber masculine, unfortunately, in the wrong direction of the masculinity, where it's domination over women. And now there's a rebalancing that's happening. But I believe that we will hit that rebalance, give it many more years, and we will have a world that's far more equal in energy in that way. And so men will be seen as having a little bit of feminine aspects and a little bit of masculine aspects, but that makes a really wonderful thing. Like, I'll tell you, I really appreciate my husband because he has a way of him that he's like very sensitive, and he can be very perceptive and very caring. He's very nurturing. He's always there for his friends. and he would never lift his hand, against me or against anyone. But, well, not against anyone. He has gotten into fights with other men. He has, in the past, he was arrested for, fighting like a, what do you call it, a bouncer at a club that was treating him really badly. So he has that aspect where he can be very much masculine in the idea of dominating over others, but then he has this other aspect that he can go towards where he's very nurturing. And I think that we're going to start to see that men can be nurturing, women can be dominating, and it just kind of is being shared now energetically. Dylan, isn't the Father the Son? Yeah, so that's where it gets really strange, right? And then you have to go into the Trinity idea. Yes, so there's lots of ways that you could see it. So you see the Trinity, you can see Jesus, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. But isn't that requiring somebody to have a depth of understanding of the energy and the way that everything is all connected? So that is kind of a mystical understanding, isn't it? To see God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit all as one, as the Trinity. But then there's a very material way of seeing it, as if Jesus was the Son of God. And so there's different branches of Christianity. And so it's like, what are you looking at more? Now, the Celtic Irish, like if you go to the Book of Kells and you go to like the Irish Christian monks, they included the Trinity idea because probably it came from the Triskelion, where it was the idea of everything is one. So because Ireland has had help from the elves and the fairies and that knowledge of nature, their type of Christianity evolved into including that more mystical approach. And so that's where that Trinity idea came from. But not all Christian branches do. If you come to the US and you just go to a regular Baptist church, you're going to just get the Father and Jesus. So it really depends what sect of Christianity, and it can get very confusing, can it? And here's the problem with the sects. And this is why in the Pleiadian contact report, they were so against sectarianism, is because they know that even a Christian can fight against another Christian. And it has happened that if you don't believe in Jesus the way that they believed, there was a competition and conflict. So sects are also problems because they are dividing religion into smaller groups that can fight against each other and amongst each other. We have a terrible, terrible crisis within Islam because of the hadiths that came. Hadiths are basically written down words of Muhammad. After Muhammad died, they wrote all these words and they called them the hadiths. And also it was people that knew Muhammad and they entered into the hadiths. So you have 72, I want to say this, you have 72 different sects of Islam itself. And this is why Islam can be very confusing as much as Christianity or others. And so there's this big push today. I will tell you this as like kind of just knowing a lot about different religions. There's a big push today for Islam to get back to just the Quran, because it will take away all the different sects that were created through the hadiths. And then that might minimize some of the sectarianism. So that's a great step for Islam to take, because you're not going to get rid of Islam completely, but everything has to be in layers, in the idea of let's look at what we can do and how Islam can minimize its conflict within the world, within against each other. The Shiite and the Shiites, they have bloody wars in some of the Muslim countries. So there are really, really horrible things that happen with sectarianism. You have a Muslim fighting another Muslim. You have another Christian fighting another Christian. And that's where it can get really confusing, because not only are the Christians fighting the whole world or Muslims fighting the whole world, they're also fighting each other. So religion has divided into many, 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 many small compartments, and have categorized people and have divided people. And that's what has caused the problem of not having the brotherly love on earth. So that is definitely, I think, what I wanted to say about that, with the idea of the Trinity and lots of different ways of seeing things. My personal diary, BT, I've thought that as well. Jesus gave up his spirit, and that is how he was able to keep it. Yeah, I would say it was, I mean, for me, he could have either stayed or he could have gone, but what really matters is what he left behind, as far as his words. Now, there is a group, and they are related to the royals, that believe that what he left behind is children or a bloodline, and that's most important because they believe it's royal blood, that Jesus had ascended blood, and that's the divine rule of king. And here's where we have the problem with people being above others. We need to level the playing field and get rid of all ruling elites in the idea of seeing them as better, instead of just seeing them as maybe they're a good leader who can help govern and do things that you don't want to do, taking care of the nation. But to see the divine rule in people is something that caused a lot of problems. The Egyptians had this difficulty. The divine rule in kings was terrible, because that's what allowed all of the slaves to be taken advantage of. Poor people had to build these huge monuments for the kings just because they believed that their blood was more pure and more divine than the masses. And that's really sad. And then, Dylan, how do you become more love in the next life to give it up for the world and imagine all that love? How do you become more love in the next life to give it up for the world? I just think that you just keep working on this life, and as loving as you become in this life, then you will enter into a new incarnation where you will have that previous wisdom and that vibration within you, and then you'll have to learn again. You'll have to go through new experiences, but you'll probably build upon that experience of love into a more heightened experience. That's how I see it. And I would say this, that angels and ascended masters to me are teachers that have been on earth, and then they have ascended into source, and we can access their information. We can access them as guides, and we can get messages, but they themselves don't come back to earth because they're ascended masters, and they just have ascended back to source. But I believe that angels are souls that can represent a highly evolved soul that decides to come back and assist and be messengers from source to remind others of the spiritual truth in a material world, so that people don't get so lost. And that's what I think the angels really were. I do believe that we did have angels, and that either they were extraterrestrials or other souls that have been on earth, and they come in kind of a light body form where you can't really see them, and they only appear for a little bit, and they give a message, or they telepathically download information into people that were prophets or messengers, or, well, just prophets, because the angels are more messengers. And then you can choose to be a messenger and align yourself with the angels if you want to spread that message. Okay, let's see. So GBT, my personal story or diary, your perspective on this resonates big time. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm really glad. That's great. Namaste. It's Yeah, I mean, I'm really kind of just putting it out there, and it's nice to hear that, that I'm not alone in that perspective. Wise Tales art. Will humanity ever grow up? I am an old soul, and I'm really tired of this realm, just tired of this realm even existing. Humans have used the same system for millennia. Nothing has really changed. Yeah. Yeah. I have felt that too at times. But then I decide, well, what can I do with my time here? Can I spend it being upset with everyone and not seeing change, or can I become part of the change? And so it really comes down to an inner focus. And then that's when you start to see others kind of reflect what you're doing, because you will see those reflections of yourself in others. And although they are different souls doing their own thing, there is a connection that you will have if you align to them vibrationally. So that's kind of how I've gotten over my frustration. And I choose to be part of this change and evolution, because I do see that it is occurring. It's subtle, it's slow, but I do see that it is occurring. And I would say that the majority of souls are able to have deep intellectual conversations about consciousness, about their own awareness, and about life itself. And there are still some that, are behind because they just have not had that life experience yet. And a lot of it does have to do with education. It's really helpful to have the subjects of philosophy. That's huge. And ethics, because the humanities and music and art, the humanities themselves is what raises the vibration of the human mind. And it's getting in touch with your artistic creative side. And I believe that that's when we start to harness the divine messages and we get really in touch with our higher selves. So a lot of these schools that are very poor, that don't have the humanities, think about a small poor village in the South or even in Africa, if they don't have the humanities and they have just the strict subjects like, math and science and reading and learning language that way, we need to include them on this idea where we can bring forth philosophy and ethics, because this is when humans start to really contemplate their existence. And the more and more you contemplate your existence, the more and more answers come to you. And that's really what I believe. So I think that more schools need to focus on bringing forth these subjects that allow people to have fun and, reflect on these kinds of things. Because if you don't grow up with that and you never really studied philosophy, or you never studied anything that would make you think deeper, then you're going to be subject to just very simple thinking. And that, I think, is why it's so important to, just, I think, be patient, because I think that those subjects are coming in. It's also important that we have more of an equal type of education system where, every school gets these subjects and it's not just based on money. And somehow we have to give our time and our effort as teachers and as those that want to supply textbooks on philosophy and these types of, humanitarian type of studies and subjects. We have to be able to give those to the schools that are lacking. And this is why it's so sad whenever a government doesn't have a budget, they cut the arts, they cut music, they cut. And, it's interesting because in the long run, yes, math can help you, but you don't use all that math. You really don't. It's the arts that get you in touch with your creative power. And I think it's something completely backwards that we have. I don't think that we need all the math that we learn in school, because we end up only using really basic math to get by in society, unless you go further with your studies and you become like an architect or somebody who uses math a lot, like an engineer or even a physicist. But I mean, not everybody uses calculus, and yet they'll cut these other types of subjects that are so important to the human soul. And I think that that's where we'll see humanity start to develop and evolve. And I do see that we are moving in that direction, but I focus more on what I can do. So I hope that helps you get rid of your frustration or helps to soothe it a little bit, because I know what you're feeling. You're not alone in that. Dylan, why would they want to make contact if we can let our own starve? Imagine women, holy cats or Catholics, women are the true healers. I mean, yeah, true. Like if we're going to act like an archaic or a system, a civilization that's not going to feed their own, or it's not going to use some of the wiser choices to help everybody live harmoniously with each other and equally, then yeah, basically, what Michu Kachu, doesn't he say like Earth is like a number 1 or a 0 or something? Not a 0, but maybe like a 1, a level in terms of our complexity, that there are planets with intelligent life that are at higher complexity levels, like 4 and 5. The Pleiadians are at stage 5, and they said that Earth is stage 3. So there's a huge difference. Not everybody on Earth at stage 3, but the general society makeup was at 3. Now it's moved into 4, and now we're slowly moving into 5. And so we're kind of, not everybody is at the 5th level, but I think that we're generally making our way towards that. And I think that, yeah, we're going to experience the differences. And when you become awakened and you're in 5th dimension yourself, in terms of your reality that you experience life on, then you're going to look at others and be like, come on, hurry up. You're going to be impatient, but you have to have the patience, like the elves of Tolkien. You just have to, allow yourself the chance to not worry so much and to have more of a peaceful life when you have patience for others, and you just have faith and trust that they too will get there. And I believe that too. So you said women are the true healers. So I am not an ultimate feminist in the idea that I believe males and women are really equal in their powers of healing. But I do believe that women do need more of a spotlight now and a chance to really shine, because there has been so many ages where they have been oppressed and pushed down. So I do appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that we need women to come back up and move to the level where men are, and then men will have to probably catch up with women, and then eventually we'll be equal in terms of our abilities and getting in touch with our intuition and connection to source. Thank you, Sean. I hear audio. Good. I'm glad. Okay. EJ Wiley, I only have been to church 2 times in my memory bank, and money and books is my religion. Oh, good. Well, be careful with money as your religion, because a lot of people have that. And, anything that's your religion, it's basically your focus. So if I say nature is my religion, then I'm saying that nature is my focus, and it's what I devote and worship, in the idea of what I spend my time thinking about and appreciating. And I think that that's, I don't know if you meant that, if money is your religion, but books can be your religion too. And the idea of that's your focus, that's what you devote all your time to and your effort. Dylan, when you open your Kundalini, you're being reborn in this world, then dying is being reborn into ether. And it's like Russian dolls. That's my perspective. Love the Olmo videos, never tried Elven frequencies. Oh, good. I'm glad you watched those. Ulmo is the water Valar of Tolkien's world, and he's got some really interesting powers, really a great Valar to learn about. And yeah, I agree. The Kundalini well, the Kundalini is the sacred snake, the spiral of creation. So it's kind of how we see galaxies move and the way that the universe moves into up to different dimensions. And so the Kundalini energy is a reflection of that spiral energy that's coming up. And that's why they say it's coiled at the base of your spine like a snake, because the snake is in a spiral. So then the energy moves up all the way through your chakras, and then this is the crown chakra, the Christ consciousness. So yeah, it's about having this openness, and all that really means is that you have moved past the blockages of the different 7 levels of consciousness within you. And I can do another video on that, but yeah, the chakras, I have a couple videos on chakras. Actually, I have a playlist on chakras if you're ever interested in watching. E.J. Wiley, Jesus Crook is his new name. All that in my name because he spoke, guilt tripping y'all to put you in fear to feed the... No, it wasn't Jesus though. I believe the words. When you read the words of Jesus, you can get the energy of the person. And if Jesus was a bad guy, and if he was a terrible person, he would not be as popular as he is today, because the message would not spread so much if he was somebody that people didn't trust or believe in. But I believe that the church manipulated, and they are the crooks. Not every church, but I believe that those that started to use Jesus in that way, that's definitely my perspective. And I don't think that we can really blame Jesus, because when we tap into his energy, when I do, I don't see him as ever intentionally doing what is on earth now in terms of religion. It was really just him trying to provide a message for others and spiritual reminders to others of what's really important in life and how they can stop suffering. It's the same thing that the Buddha did. He was really interested in helping people stop suffering. And it's what happens when a soul awakens. Many of you all know this already, and I know this, that when you truly awaken and you feel part of everything, you sit back and you're like, great, now what do I do? Oh, I know, I'm going to help everybody else awaken. And that's what happens, because you can't get to the state of awakening and be alone. In your state of awakening, you will feel so lonely there. And that is the ultimate truth of creation, is that creation itself split off and fragmented into all of us because it is alone. And it wanted friends. It needed to express itself in many forms so that it was no longer alone. And I feel that there's a true loneliness that you can tap into of creation when you really want to go there. But that can be a dark abyss. And it's better to focus on... So in the past, I've thought that the aloneness of creation, of Prime Source, was a very sad state. But over time, I have realized that it is a state that needed to be there, present, in order for life to spring forward in its many different parts, because it's about making itself no longer alone. And I don't see it as a negative anymore or a very sad state, but rather it is an existing state so that we may have all the infinite souls and be able to know one another and connect to each other. And so now I don't go down that deep, dark abyss of loneliness, but that is possibly why everybody at one point in their life will feel alone, because ultimately Source is alone until it reconnects and divides itself and then reconnects. Let's see. Did you say this, EJ? This is interesting. You said Jesus will never qualify to be a human. Humans are on a higher rank. Well, I mean, I guess that's your perspective, but I don't see him that way. I don't blame Jesus. I really, truly don't. I think that it's more about what happened in his name afterwards and how they used him. You know, it's like anything. Somebody can set up a company or organization, and then when the person's gone, like, okay, let's take Walmart, for example. Walmart started as a really great idea to help people receive goods at a lower cost in bulk form, or just a cheaper version to help lower economic status receive food and money and supplies and all that, whatever else they can buy at Walmart. But over time, the shareholders and those that make up the organization can change the mission statements or the way that they run. So it's just like the churches. The very first church was just Jesus on a hill, probably talking to people. And then over time, it changes. And it really depends on who's building the church and who's being in front of the people. And not all the time was it maybe the most enlightened teachers, I would say, or those that had the money to build the churches. Maybe they just wanted to have more power for themselves. And that's how I see it. Jaya Mulcano, Sulad, I'm Matt. Oh, good. Maya Gavanan. And yay, nice picture right there behind you. Oh, good. I'm glad you're seeing the same thing. And then EJ, no, you cannot sell your soul in the afterlife. Devil is too weak in the afterlife to own any claim on souls. He can only control it for human entertainment. I love how you put Jesus down, but then you're like, no, the devil's not a bad guy. EJ, that's funny. But I mean, I get what you're saying. I personally do not believe in a devil, but that everyone can have that energy. It's a vibration. It's a frequency that we enter on. And then that creates our reality. And people act like devils. And they can work for the devil. But it's really just more about what consciousness level you're at. That's how I see it. Esther, hey, I'm from Netherlands. Oh, good. Great. Glad to meet you. I have some family lineage of the Netherlands, so it's nice to meet you. Let's see, more questions. Where is it? Oh, okay. So, okay, have you played the game Dark Souls? If so, what do you think of the character, Sister? Oh, no, I haven't played. I actually... Frida? Is it Sister Frida? I have not played Dark Souls. No, sorry. Oh, White Fairy Queen. I like your take on taking care of animals as well as people. It's good. And the way I also think the creators would want us to be. Yeah, I think it's really just a reflection. It's like the idea of like how you treat others is how you treat yourself. At some point, and this is what vegetarians and vegans start to feel, at some point when we see the suffering of animals, we start to feel it inside ourselves. And it's not saying that carnivores are not there, or those who eat meat are not there yet, but it's about just your focus. And so if you're really focused on that pain and that suffering of the animals, then you will just be very empathic, and you'll want to make sure that you treat the animals in the way that you would want to be treated, like not, shoved in a factory and things like that. So that's my perspective. I think that it has a lot to do with animals, and I think that it's also his followers too. It's just everybody in general, basically. I think Jesus was very bold in trying to just take the stance of being a a voice piece for the collective, for the universe. And that happens throughout our years. It's just people that want to really help others. They say, well, it's not me. I'm just a medium and I'm just bringing these messages down. I mean, I do that sometimes on my channel too. So I think that it's a certain place of consciousness that a person's at when they want to help humanity that way. And I think that Jesus was really at that high level where he just had no fear. The way that he spoke to people, he was egoless. He was really just concerned about really helping the world. And he was concerned about just being a servant to the whole universe and helping humanity evolve. And I think that maybe that's where he really was. The golden egg is your kundalini, the golden light. That's why they want to take people's eggs in spring. Oh, interesting. Yeah, the egg is interesting because it comes from Astara and the whole fertility of spring, and the kundalini, I've heard it more referenced to be more of a snake coiled because it's the spiral shape. So I think that that's why, or even a shell, like a conch shell, and just the spiral moving up. But I guess it could be also a golden egg too that's residing within you and just gets brighter and brighter and brighter in your aura, until you reach all the auras, all the levels of chakras. And then you just have this brilliant aura around you that sometimes people can see, but it's more about feeling. And those that have that same vibration with you, they will align to you and understand you. And your light will shine through and you'll be able to affect others. And that's what the Christ consciousness does. Affect others in a positive way. You can just help people because you yourself are more so healed and you are ready to assist with other people's healings. White Fairy Queen. Actually, my family doesn't know that I'm following a different path. It took years for me to not have fear inside. I'm much happier not living in fear. My family would never accept my change. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But yeah, I mean, if you ever feel like you need to, I would say that that's really important for our own type of freedom. But if you also are in the position where you don't have to talk to your family a lot, then I completely understand. But if you are in the position where you have to talk to your family, that could be something that can weigh on you as if you're not really honest with them. But yeah, I mean, it's your personal choice of what you want to do. But I'm just happy that you found what makes you happy. And the Elven spiritual path and like the path of the fairies and Wicca in general is something that, just aligns to who you are. And we're just all searching for what makes us happy. And what makes us happy is so different because we all come from a different place of vibration and frequency from Prime Source. So we're experiencing our lives subjectively together. And the objective perspective is what Jesus takes and Buddha takes and all those ascended masters. Objective perspective is when you're looking at the world with the eyes of the universe and you want the best for all souls, criminals, murderers, thieves, does not matter. You love them all only because you know that they are simply souls that are at a different place of their consciousness and they're learning and they're growing, but it doesn't devalue them as a soul for what they have done. And that you are looking at the eyes of the universe and you want the best for everyone the same, equally, in terms of your love. And, because people will need different things in terms of, like, when I say equal, I don't think it's the same, but it's more just energetic respect of seeing everybody as an equal and that our value is all the same. And I think that Jesus took that objective perspective, and that's what that is. But you can also have a subjective perspective coming from the universe, and that's what each of our lives are. EJ, what's the path when you just pissed When you're just pissed the F off. I don't resonate with all the fear stuff. When you're just mad and angry, well, that could be a path of Satan, and the idea of a lot of Satanists take on that role. You know, they're just so upset with all of the terrible things that religion has done. They play the part of the devil in order to get rid of religion and act like the Antichrist. But it's not about them being evil or sacrificing or anything like that. It's more just about, it represents their anger with religion. And so they purposely take on that role. So the Satanists, you would fit in right with them if you are just so angry and you can't get over your anger and you just want to be able to commiserate with others that are so angry and mad at religion. Then you can find a lot of great friends with the Satanists, or atheists too. Satanists just take on more of the symbolic meaning behind Satan, and atheism is they don't take on that symbolic meaning. They're just really more about like just math and science, and they're not looking at things in that more symbolic nature. But they're also kind of crossed together now. Atheists and Satanists, they can kind of sometimes really connect. I've had a great interview with an atheist on my channel. If you go to the White Council meetings and you take a look at the atheist, I think it was the angry atheist, then you can see why he's so angry at religion and what they're really about. But he's a really nice guy. He's actually a really, really nice man, just really concerned about religion. I don't take that path of anger because I know what my anger can do. I've felt my anger before, and I just don't want to unleash that. And it's just not my style. Okay, let's see more things here. So I'm going to ask, Armando Arcturian, religion, politics, the economy, money, borders, cultures, languages, divide and conquered methods are the pillars of the reptilian control system. Yeah, it's very draconian, very, very, like that word is really interesting because we use it to describe a system that is very dominating and tyrannical. And it's like, well, the Dracos and the reptilian Dracos from Draco constellation, it's all connected. And that's where that root word came from and why we've had it in humanity for a long time. It's just a type of mindset that they have. They cannot let go of their control or power. But it really does have to do with humanity's consciousness liberation from them, because when we evolve more on a conscious level, they can't have control over us. They simply can't, because they also have to move with the laws of the universe and abide to it, as many of the other aliens do. And so one thing that I've always known is like, we need to rise above the vibrations of those that are part of the draconian system and want to have that kind of draconian, rule over Earth. We ourselves have to evolve and move past that, and we will skip that level of reality in many ways. Already, I think that the light side has really won out in terms of, I don't think that they can be in control as much as they have been in control in the past. I think that we're really slowly pulling away from that control. And I think that that's something really to celebrate and to focus on, and just keep on liberating yourself, keep on freeing your mind and helping to free the mind of others. And then eventually we're going to have a whole new world that's not going to be under their control any longer. And then Dylan, thank you so much for being real, the real books of the dead. I've been learning to breathe in life and love learning how love or thanks change. Crystalline structure in water. Oh, that's good. I'm glad. Yeah, and Books of the Dead. That's an interesting book. And I actually read it and I know a lot about it. It's not actually a book, it's scrolls that Egyptian priests wrote magic spells on. And these magic spells would help souls be able to get past the demons that would devour them in the afterlife, or allow them to get past like the scales of weighing their heart versus a feather. And the problem with the Book of the Dead scrolls is that they were priced at such a high, expensive value that the poor in Egypt, in ancient Egypt, could not have those scrolls buried with them. Only the elite and rich ruling class could. So what is that saying? That's saying that, I mean, that's really sad. That makes death a really scary thing, in the idea that if you don't get buried with those particular spells, then you're not going to have a better afterlife. I have a lot of problems with ancient Egypt. I feel it's really connected to my past in many ways too, that I feel that there was a lot of unfairness, a lot of inequality, and I don't think that we need to repeat that form of religion or mythology or anything. Although we can understand maybe some of the deeper messages of the Book of the Dead, I think the spiritual wisdom was really good, but I think the way that the structure happened around it was just terrible for people that were poor. I mean, we just really need to be more just aware of each other and not do that to those that maybe might not have the money to, have all the tools that they need. And we just really need to, like I keep saying, level the playing field. I really believe that. All my experience comes from pain. This is Dylan. Being unloved, I had to learn to find true love and joy. That was a really tough thing for me too. And it's what's interesting for me is that I went through my life feeling unloved because I was always looking for love. And I also felt for my father that he wasn't giving me the love that I wanted it to be expressed as. My father was not openly expressive, and he would only provide me things, and it would be his love language. And that's a real thing. Like, if you don't accept the message of love from another in the way that they're giving it to you, you're going to feel like a person doesn't love you. But sometimes a person loves you and they don't say it, and they just show it in a different way. And that's something that I've learned over time. And when it comes to trying to find love in terms of romance, you can watch my video on how to find true love. But I found the meaning of it because I took some time for myself to finally just feel good about myself and find love within, love with, the nature around me and the cosmos and everything. And I really developed my spirituality. And then that's when I started to attract the right person that was aligned to all that love. And it was my husband. And we're still together today. And he told me that when he saw me dancing on my own, that he saw me so filled of life. And I was like, yes, that's how I wanted to be seen, because I was somebody that experienced death at an early age. And a lot of people only saw me as filled of death, or that I represented death, or I myself thought that I represented death in many ways, just because of where I was and how I was acting. And in some ways, maybe I was really not yet alive. And so that's how I personally healed from feeling unloved. I felt the love within, and then I no longer started searching for it outside. I don't look for it from my father. I don't look for it from my, from other men. Sometimes my husband, I get into that mood. I'm like, give me affection and attention. But that's because I've gotten to a comfort level where I can be vocal with my needs, and it's like a lesson for me to do more of that in my life, which is good for me because it helps me progress on my spiritual development, because sometimes I was way too giving of myself and I wasn't expecting anything in return, and that was causing a little bit of resentment. on a subconscious level. I wasn't aware of the resentment that I carried. So I carried a lot of anger in me. So I'm glad that you're starting to, that you learned to find true love and joy, because I think that's the most important thing that a soul can do, because they can be poor, they can have a really tough situation and difficult events to go through. But if you always feel that love within and you feel that inner joy, you can get through anything. You truly can. You could be a poor person and still be filled of joy. And there's many stories about that. We see that all the time. Let's see. More. I love your comments, everybody. This is great. Blue Sinclair, PM, a positive mental attitude. Oh, like what also is needed? A positive mental attitude? Yeah, it's about that positive energy that you're bringing in. And it's not like you're not looking at the negative, you're adding something to the negative, because negative means that something has been taken away or something doesn't exist in its place. It's negative, it's zero. And so your positive energy will add a plus sign. It will add energy to that zero, or it will bring in something that wasn't there before. So that's what positive energy does. It opens up new opportunities and new experiences. It's so much more than just putting a fake smile on your face. It's actually truly being a quantum activist and bringing positive energy into the world where there has been negative energy, or there has not been energy like yours before. And you're adding something new, which is what I think a lot of this is about us creating something new together, and you keep on expanding. Our world is a lot like Minecraft, and maybe that's why everybody loves it so much. Like the kids love Minecraft, and sometimes adults too. And a lot of times that's what our world is. It's virtual reality, and the idea of we create a world together. And it's like, what are you building? What are you building in your home? What are you building around you, in your relationships? And then we just build together. Let's see, more. EJ, you're back again. Will Jesus and God help the next Christ supernaturally? If so, how? Okay, so you're dividing Jesus and God. I don't divide. There's nothing else except for prime source that we all emanate from energetically, and that arranges the matters and the molecules that we are. So I would say that the next Christ, I believe, is us. I think that all the poetic messages about the second coming is really us. It's us rising into Christ consciousness and changing this world together, and no longer being slaves to an old mentality that kept us in prison. And I really, truly believe that. I think the second coming is us. I think all of us together. And maybe not all together at the same time, but maybe slowly, subtly, because maybe it's not going to just be one big event where everybody just wakes up one day. But I think it will be a slow, gradual move into the new galactic civilization that we're destined in many ways to build on Earth together. So I hope that answered your question. Wise Tales Art. Thank you so much. You inspired me to create and educate with art. I would like to include myths and legends. Can you suggest books for me to learn about the muses, fairies, and virtues? I would say myths and legends. So there are a lot of anonymous ones. I have a couple books on the Celtic fairy tales, and they're anonymously written. And you can find those on eBay, or Amazon. And, there's not really any writers. Like, they don't have writers. But you can look into those. Like, just look up Celtic fairy tales. You can look at, I think Hans Christian Andersen is a good place too. I think a lot of his fairy tales, the ones that we don't know, I mean, he was the one that started like Little Mermaid and Cinderella, and Disney built on his fairy tales. But I think his other fairy tales that are not so well known are also really great, like the Elder Tree Mother. That's an old fairy tale, and that's something that I have on my channel. Virtues. I would say definitely start there with the anonymous writers of the fairy tales. Look at the Celtic fairy tales and look into those legends. And then I would say also, Brian Froud, he's a little bit newer, but I would say that he's very inspiring. And there's a bunch of his books on fairies. And I think that he was somebody that was really tapped into the fairy world. And the way that he described each fairy, dangerous or benevolent and kind, I think that that also can really help you and inspire you in some ways. But I don't know, I'd have to think more about that. But yeah, just kind of look around at the old legends that are out there. Faith Gibson, my son, who is an atheist, just told me that hell was an idea that wasn't invented until the 3rd century. What do you think about that idea? Well, Jesus many times in saying, and also, I mean, hell has been in every religion. I mean, all the way from the Hinduism, the Vedics, which were the very first basically written forms of structure of religion, I would say. Every religion has had hell. Hell is simply the opposite of heaven. It's a state of suffering, a state of torment and anguish, and it's a state that you can be in your life. So I don't think that hell is invented or was invented in the 3rd century, but more so it's always existed as a representative of the opposite of bliss, of peace, of happiness. And it's a state of consciousness that you can be at. You can be in a hellish consciousness and you can be in a heavenly consciousness. And your world will reflect that. Your reality will reflect that. And I do think that there are realms that are even more extreme versions of that, whereas fairyland or a beautiful heavenly, realm could be an example of a soul that went through a lot of their learning and they get to a place where they don't have any guilty consciousness left. They don't have anything really to work on karmically, and they can rest a while in a realm like that. But somebody that has a lot on their mind still and in their consciousness and has not worked on some things, have killed people, hurt people, whatever, have hurt themselves, then they're going to have to go through that experience of learning and growing and moving forwards, getting out of hell, basically escaping hell. But it's been in every religion. So I don't really think that it's something made up. I think it's more something that has been remembered that exists as what we can experience in the material world or in, field space around us in our reality. I hope that answered your question. Thank you, Faith. Armando, Dylan, you chose how to live due to reincarnation to pay karma or experience a certain thing, etc., like pain, sorrow, hard situations. See it as a game that you have come to experience. I think that's great. Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, yeah, if you look at things as a game, it's like, well, then you can get through your obstacles that you're supposed to get through eventually. Dylan, what is your opinion on Native American ancestry from the stars? Me being Navajo and Cherokee, I haven't been able to talk to our elders about which constellation I come from. Well, there's lots of different, I think, ancestry from the stars, but some of the Native American tribes I know, the Hopi specifically talk about Pleiades, so you can look into them. They're Hopi. The Navajo and the Cherokee, I would say that you would have to talk to. The reason why we know that the Hopi are from the Pleiades is because there have been chiefs that have actually spoken that in front of their village, and now it's like been a message that has been passed down or quotes that you can read and look up. But I'm not sure what the chiefs of Navajo and Cherokee have said, but you would have to maybe go deeper into the history of where they say that they have come from. That's the really only one that I know is the Hopi. And I also feel maybe I've only focused on them because maybe I have had a past life experience with it. But yeah, I think you can get some information if you look at the messages that were left behind from the chiefs or the witch doctors or the shamans that were the ones that were kind of in charge of the village, and the spiritual teachers, not in charge, but the spiritual teachers that would help give the messages to the villagers. White fairy queen. So true. I'm vegan. I feel pain for them. I only want to do what is kind and loving to animals. They are just as important as we are and have feelings like we do. I'm right with you. I know what you mean. Dylan, Big Crane. Haven't raised my frequency to the point to channel to the higher realms. Also, I want to hear you speak on protection vids because the Draconian tried to steal it when it opened. I saw him 2 orbs and saved me. So a lot of ways that I protect myself against these entities, because I actually do receive psychic attacks sometimes, either technologically something will happen on my computer or I will sense it within me. And I would say that what I have done is I've just really focused on, once again, connecting to source and feeling like I'm part of everything and I'm part of all that is. And that in the end, even those Draco reptilians, whoever is messing with me, they are also part of that source. And it really kind of dissolves their power. And although they might not experience it, or maybe they do, I experience it in my reality as a lessened hold on me. And their energy is not as powerful. So meditation really helps. Every day I meditate, and that really helps me to get in touch with source. And I just feel one with everything that way. And I keep my shield up that way. And when you're a sovereign being, it's like you can have the orcs, you could have all these different dark entities running around you trying to hurt you. But because you know the truth of everything in the regards to being connected to everything, then nothing can really hurt you. That's the true light, the elven light power. The elves had the elven light, which is the light of Valinor. So it's being connected to source and having all access of that power. Basically, I have the power of the universe to protect me versus their individual attack on me. I hope that helped. White Fairy Queen. So true. I did that one already. So White Fairy Queen again. I wish I could tell them, but they would disown me and want to have, you're talking about your family? And they would want to have me exorcised from the devil. I know them well and know they are very unbending. Only my sons know my change. He is a Viking now. Well, once again, I am so sorry that you experienced that in your life, but it's something that you have overcome. It seems like you're working with it and you know where your family comes from. And if you're not pushing them to understand you, then you can have peace, because sometimes when we push things, they just do not work, and eventually maybe the more peace that you feel with this path, the more accepting they will become. That's my hope for you. And that's kind of what I've seen in my own life. Lady Ravenhill, sorry, I'm coming into this late, but do you have advice for working through outdated, harmful values ingrained after being raised in a fundamentalist home that impede with awakening to your own path? My advice is, if you're working through it, so I don't have the guilty consciousness of somebody that was born in a religion and then somebody that moved out of that religion. So this is hard for me, but if I can put myself into your perspective or into your place, if you're dealing with kind of that guilt or feeling like a self-doubt. Sometimes maybe you doubt yourself if this is the right path, or are you actually following the devil? I would say that the only way that you can really work through that is just by constantly being in touch with your higher self, just listening to that voice within, and then that voice will assure you that you're on the right path. You know the right path for you, that your soul is supposed to experience. In some way, it's kind of like set out for you because you designed it before space-time, but you also are in kind of a choose your own adventure, and you also choose new pathways and create as you go. So if you're in touch with that power, then you'll never feel guilt for choosing another path, because you have recreated in your life. You have the power of creation within your life to choose your own path or to go a different way. So I would say that can really help by looking at yourself as a recreator of a whole new path, and no longer feeling any type of guilt or anything. And that ultimately, if you're doing something that is better for humanity in terms of the path that you take, spiritual path that you take, if it teaches you important messages and wisdom to care for others like you would care for yourself, to involve yourself in the world in terms of community, sharing and helping to spread the message and be an angel on earth, then that spiritual path, there's no wrong in that. You're helping the collective, you're helping others, and you're doing ultimately what Jesus wanted you to do, or what the other prophets wanted people to do, Moses when he was talking. And if you're not hurting anybody, you're doing what the universe wants. That's how I see it. So I think that that's really how people can help themselves walk through that guilt. I'm so sorry, I have to close this door here. I'll be right back. My dog just like came in and pushed open the door. I just wanted to say hi. But just see yourself as the one in control, and that you are not being, I think the biggest problem that people have if they grow up with the mind that you can go towards the devil is that you sometimes feel like you lack control and that someone else is controlling you. You have to get that power back and say, no, I'm in control at all times. There's no one else guiding my life except for me, because you at the highest level, and I'm just being a mirror right now, saying this to you so you remember, at the highest level, you are the sentient awareness of the universe experiencing your life. And it's just, we experience it in many different forms and ways, because that's maybe how the universe expresses itself and evolves and expands, by having so many parts. Otherwise, we'd just be one lone soul in the universe, one consciousness. And we are one consciousness in one way, but we have fragmented, which is a really good thing too, as well as sometimes it causes problems when you get too focused on the division and you don't seek for the spiritual truth of unity. But you have to see yourself in control, and that the devil is not controlling you, not pulling you off the path. You are choosing this path for yourself, and that's how I see it. So I hope that helped, Lady Ravenhill. That was a great question. David, Sebastian, how do you know when you have a download? So it's different for everyone. Some people can get a sense in their body. Some people can get a vision in their mind. It has to do with a lot of different psychic abilities that you may have, and those are kind of divided in the different descriptions of what they entail, because some entail seeing things in front of you or in your mind, hearing and feeling. For me, I am more of a cognizant psychic, in the way where I get a knowing, and this knowing comes through my body, and it's like I can't do anything else. I have to go make a video. I need to share with others, and I get this it fills my whole body. I think that's the best way to describe it. It fills my whole body. It fills my focus, and I just can't do anything else except for get that done. Either speak about it, write about it, think about it for a while, because if I'm not ready to speak about it, I might just think about it for a little bit. And I think you just have to pay attention to what your body is doing and what you're seeing or what you're visualizing in your mind, and then those are the signs. If it feels like it's not completely coming from you, your ego, and if it has something to do with the world, helping the world or helping other souls, more than likely that's a download from Prime Source, because it's interested in helping all souls. You, at the highest level, are interested in helping all souls. So I hope that that gave you some indication of what a download feels like for me. Dylan, look at the system. Everything comes from the dead. Books, knowledge, money, DNA, unlocking. Maybe we've all met before. I have a connection with Anubis. I think maybe that's why I found your videos. Interesting. I would say yes, we are all, I think we are all connected. And I think we have all met before in another universe. I think that all souls that are playing together on Earth right now in this collective have also been part of an old universe. And we're learning and relearning and growing and trying to see what else we can create from our knowledge of the old universe, and now we're creating together in a new one. And I really do believe that. I believe that that all souls that are in a planet or a species together, which is known as a collective, and sometimes when I talk about collective, I'm talking about the entire multiverse, which can be a little confusing, but I mean it from basically a total unity standpoint. But I believe that since everything comes from one, every single soul that comes from that one would all have different experiences and different lives and incarnations with each other and playing different roles in other different incarnations. And we have always been with each other from the birth of consciousness, really. I believe that. And when you recognize a soul, I think that you're becoming really aware of your incarnated lifetime, of what you've had with a person, or just connecting back to source and feeling like one with everything. So you feel this like deep connection and familiarity with certain souls because they vibrate on your same level that you are at in terms of your consciousness level. And then they'll be familiar to you because they're souls that have existed and have learned what you have learned. And now you're here on this path and you're going through your life. And then you meet another that has kind of gone through the same learnings or pathways, and they're a friend on your journey. They become a friend on your journey. We always need each other to walk each other home, because ultimately we can't get anywhere alone, which is really interesting about the universe, because it's almost like we need each other, or we need reminders from each other, because ultimately we are the many and the one. So we need to have that connection with each other as well as connection with just ourselves. E.J. Wiley, positive ideas for the political system is to have humans pick the first 3 candidates for president and then use a lottery ball system to let Holy Spirit pick the one for the seat when that happens. I have a very strange political system within me. I believe in an egalitarian system, which doesn't quite exist yet. It's more just kind of a theoretical, philosophical idea, but I like the idea. I feel closest to, I think an advanced civilization could have like a wise council that is in governance of the world, but not what we have now with kind of the union and everything that we have, the European Union. I'm not sure if that's really what I'm thinking, but more so that it would have to be a civilization where we would move to the level of awareness where we would trust everyone within the wise council, and we would want them or see them as being able to bring the wisdom and, you know, the guidance. So I mean, I think we would be better with a one system government, but not the one system government that maybe many politicians are thinking of. It would have to be like an alien, an extraterrestrial one system government of really loving beings that would never want to take advantage of other souls, that they would only want to do the highest good for the collective. That's kind of the political system that I imagine and I think that the world could go towards. It could take many 500,000 of years from now, but I don't know. I feel like that's something that would be best for us if we didn't have so many different divisions between politics, but we would have just like a wise council for the world, but truly a wise council for the world and people that we would all trust. And if we ever felt that they could not be trusted, that they would be voted out of that place of power, and that they don't have the ultimate power, but the power is in the people. And we would vote in representatives of the world for that council. I think that would be really great. So I know that didn't answer any of your questions, but that you brought up the political system, and I just didn't want to get involved with the earthly system that we have because it's very confusing and there's so much that needs to be fixed. And all I can do is just give you a vision of what I think would be better for us so that we don't have war. Because if you had a world council, you wouldn't have nations warring against each other because they wouldn't be divided into different political structures that would fight each other and want to dominate and control resources. Everything would be shared on a global level. And the World Council would address every land and every nation the same. And it would be the same structure throughout. But I don't think that can happen at the level of consciousness that some of the politicians are at today. I think we're getting there very slowly. We're starting to see some politicians maybe being able to be in that place, but no, I think I'm thinking something like thousands of years from now. Okay, let's get off the politics now. Okay, Lady Ravenhill, this is good. Oh, no, that was the old one. Wait, you said this. I like this, EJ. You said that humans pick the first 3 candidates for president, then use a lottery ball system to let Holy Spirit pick the one for the seat. When that happens, no nation can accuse the other of international meddling. So I think that you're getting to the idea of what I'm saying is like, if the world picks representatives for the whole world. So if aliens came, they would basically have representatives of the whole global system, and we wouldn't have the different political structures that we have. And you're right, there wouldn't be the international meddling because it would be a one world, but not a one world government the way people would think of. But I am for a one world government, but not what we currently are thinking, but a futuristic one world government of wiser, more advanced consciousness beings being in place and in charge. Let's see. Roxanne. Dylan. Oh, you're talking to Dylan? Dylan Big Crane, you come from a wonderful culture. Do make effort to talk to your elders. My understanding is that your star family were indeed from the Pleiades. Yeah, you really have to see what your culture says, because I'm not sure, but I think many of the Native Americans, many of them do feel a connection to the Pleiades, because there is a type of nature understanding that has been passed down through visitors. And really, aliens are just catalysts. They're just messengers. There are higher selves in physical form coming down and being a messenger to help kind of move Earth along, and in particular move certain cultures that are ready for their information along. And that's why the Native Americans across many tribes are highly advanced in their awareness in many ways. And it's unfortunate that they're minorities today, and what has happened with them being kind of delegated to certain places in order to hold that culture within, their Native American territories. And what has happened within has been really sad, because I've heard like drugs and things like that have gotten involved, where it has made it not the communities that they were in the past. But each age has their trial, right? All right, Dylan, thank you. It was scary, at the same time a blessing to actually be able to really see it. The images I saw in my mind's eye was like the Weeknd song Blind by Light, but Source forced it away. Yeah, if you get a download, then it's what you expect a download to feel like. It's like it just takes over your whole body, not in a possession form, because once again, you are from that source, but you're moving time along, or a timeline along, at a particular moment in time, that you get those messages. So it's all part of the story. But we need to definitely listen to those messages, because they come from a place of wanting to get us back on track, wanting us to hear something important that maybe we're forgetting, maybe we need to know, and maybe can be a messenger for others, to help others. If that is your goal, I'll say this: if you're somebody that really wants to help others, you are going to receive those tools, the psychic tools, and everything else that you need to help others, because it will be part of your toolbox that you'll need, and the universe will give you that. I mean, you'll just remember that you have that capability, and that you'll be aware at that place of consciousness where you can help others. That's really how it is. It's about will and intention to want to be a messenger, and then you become a reminder to others in a spiritual nature. You don't have to remind others about the material world, or you don't have to sit there and say, oh, remember, money is worth a lot, or remember that the ground is solid. But we have to have reminders about the things unseen. And that's because it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget down here. We're high spirits in a material world. And it's very, very easy to get lost in the material world, in that dream. It's like a dream. And sometimes it can become a nightmare when things become too divided and too focused on money and greed and selfishness. Then that's when souls start dying, and that's when everything needs to start changing, and the dream needs to change. And many of us are frustrated. We need to change this dream, and we have created this change that is happening because together our minds have connected and have chosen a new reality. And whether people want to go into a new reality or not, they're going to be dragged kicking and screaming, because the majority of people want peace. The majority of people want to stop these wars. The majority of people want better, cleaner energy. The majority of people want to see our farm industry maybe not so cruel to animals. The majority of people want to see people being nicer to each other. that's the majority of the people. And so we have a power, a mental power with that. I definitely believe. Leo, I like that song you sang in the beginning of the video, Living Life as an Otherkin Elf. What song is that? Oh, I made that up. I was just in the forest with Wizard of Oz or Odd, and I just made it up from the top of my head. So thank you so much. It's very kind of you to say, Han and Lei. It was just kind of music inside of me and just kind of came out when I was hugging a tree. Yes, very good. Dang nabbit. I done been late again. That's okay. We're just talking here. It's totally free base. So, Faith, I have to listen to you later because we are celebrating two of my son's birthdays. Okay. Well, happy birthday to your sons. Thank you for joining in, Faith. Luna, sorry I'm late. Glad I made it through. It's 3:33. What time is it now? 3:47. Okay. So now more, let's see, more comments. Oh, Dylan, that's a really great phrase. I wasn't never good in school because it was hard to adjust, though through all the pressure, a diamond was born. That's true. It's true. That's what makes a diamond, that carbon being pressurized. And yeah, that's a really, Rumi, one of the mystics of Islam, although he was like kind of a universalist. He was an Islamic scholar, but he was a mystic. And when you read his poems, you'll understand. But everything was about the spiritual world and the way that he interpreted things. He had written something called The Diamond Polisher. And it was all about going through our obstacles and our trials in order to be polished like a diamond. That is the ultimate goal, is for our soul to, because a diamond is always in the rough, and then you're polishing it through your life experiences. So over all your incarnations, you're polishing until you finally get to the source of you, and it's this brilliant diamond light that's pure and true, and it's you. That's you. And you just polished it. That's it. The Diamond Polisher. It's a really wonderful, I think it's an essay or a book. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've read it, but The Diamond Polisher by Rumi. So thank you for reminding me of that, Dylan. Alicia Bell, how do you think education system will change for 5D living? That's a great question. I've also thought about that because, you know, I majored in education, and I've thought, like, how is it going to change? So in my mind, I think that we need to get back to Socratic learning in the environment like the ancient Greeks had, where students would come if they wanted to, but they were not obligated. They were not forced by the government, but that it was a way to drive a thirst for knowledge. And I think Socratic learning, I think smaller classrooms, more personalized and out in nature, like in beautiful fields and open places like this, like in the ancient Greece. Like you would have like a Colosseum or like a temple structure, and then you would have students sitting there and they would listen to one, you know, wise teacher like Socrates or any of the philosophers or any of the teachers back then. And it was because they wanted to be there. And I feel like that's where education has to get back to. We lost something with the whole government in charge. And I know it's about giving money and supplies to the schools, but there's something about the obligation. It took the drive for knowledge away because it's more enforced rather than volunteer and chosen, really. So that's my experience. Like if I had to think about an advanced civilization that's on another planet, I would see it living much like the ancient Greeks did, in that idea of a chosen student to go to learn from a certain master that they trusted and wanted to learn from. And that it was not something that they were just pushed into this classroom and they just meet their teacher on the first day. Students would choose their teachers by reputation, by knowing them around the globe, and then they would come to them. And it would be them seeking a certain individual out to learn from. And I think that that's kind of what spiritual teachers do, is they provide a space where people can choose, and then they, go to their channel or hang out at their workshops. And it's really about a personal choice of who they want to resonate with, or who they do resonate with and who they can learn best from through their certain styles and the way that they can teach. And I think that's how our advanced educational system can be. Dylan, our innocence is our inner sense. I like that. That's nice. Edward Bevington, hope you are all safe and sound. Oh, to you too. Hope you are being safe, and thank you for joining us. Okay. And then, that's a great one. So, Joytish Cleanly. Oh gosh, I hope I said that right. I probably did not. What about Teacher by Destiny? Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a set path that we just kind of watch unfold if we follow our heart and align to our happiness and our joy of what we want to experience. And so, yeah, Teacher by Destiny. I think we can also learn, well, that's what happens. You're right. Like the idea of, think about the most advanced alien civilization, beings that are all equal, and it's almost like the ending of their age, really, where they don't have teachers anymore because all are on that same equal level. But that takes billions and billions of years of evolution, I think. And maybe that's when they no longer have to learn, but that's kind of the ending of their species. And that's how I see many of the beings that we think about that are very old and ancient, like the Arcturians. Like, they no longer have to learn, and they only kind of learn from, like you say, destiny or their own selves or nature. So yeah, in some way, I mean, eventually we'll get to that point, or we won't need teachers. But maybe that is just for a species that's ready to truly to retire, ready to really move on. All right, Lady Ravenhill again. I have past life memories of being part lots of belief systems. I wonder why my soul is trying so many different paths, and if perhaps this life is only another stepping stone across the ocean of truth. That's a really great comment. I've thought the same thing, because I've had many different spiritual paths. I was like a Zen Buddhist, and then I went into Sufism, and I did Wicca, and I even did a little bit of ancient Egyptian spirituality, and I went to all these different paths, and now I'm part of, I guess, a new spiritual organization called the Elven Spiritual Path. So I've traveled on a lot of different pathways myself. And I would say that it has hit me before where I'm like, well, why am I traveling so many different pathways? But I would say that it's more about, we need reminders. We need to remember in our lives. And so we will be called to certain paths that will help us remember something about ourselves. And then we move on. Once we get that information, we move on to another path. And that's kind of like how it's been for me. I have not stayed with a particular path, although I know in my heart I'm going to stay with the Elven spiritual path, because I found my center. I found my home, in terms of how I see the world in the universe. And it just makes sense to me. But I've learned so much with Zen Buddhism, and it's still part of me. And I think in a lot of ways, if you want to say we're connected to computers, but the mind kind of works like this, where we gather information and then we move on, and we gather more information and we move on. And all that gathered information equals our total data. And I believe that that's what we're doing, is when we're trying different pathways, we're just expanding our mind and remembering and acquiring more data to have. So what's my rising sign, Yotish? I would say that I am a I am a Scorpio rising sign. So I don't like to say that, right? Because I'm Scorpio rising sign. But no, I'm a Scorpio rising sign. And yeah, I think it makes sense for who I am. I'm actually a Pisces sun sign, but I'm a Scorpio rising sign. So both my inner and my outer is watery and emotional. But my Scorpio side, I think my outer is very Scorpio, and then my inner is my Pisces, which makes sense because that's what I was born as. Yes, very good. I think I incarnated in ancient Greece, and I had flashbacks of two men discussing about Dionysus. Yeah, isn't it strange, like when you have these flashbacks to your past life? When I was younger, I used to always dream about ancient Egypt. I was stuck in a pyramid, and I was always looking for a way out. And I don't know, maybe I was buried in a pyramid, and I was trying to find my way out of a tomb. And I had nightmares about mummies as a child. It was pretty... That lasted for about 2-3 years. It was pretty horrible. But I think it was connected to a past life of ancient Egypt. And so listen to those dreams when you have your past life kind of memories. That's important, and you can learn from them. Because what I have learned with my past life with ancient Egypt is I have learned the value of equality, and I'm very, very... I feel very passionate about slavery. And I think that that's because of what I've learned in my past life. And I know that the Pleiades and the Syrians were part of ancient Egyptian kind of devotion. And I think that they gave a lot of messages to ancient Egypt, and they tried to help them. But, you know, when aliens leave a message and then go somewhere else, it's what the humans do. I mean, they're not going to enforce anything. They're going to let the humans rule as they see fit. Right. Yotish, yes, Scorpios are fond of the occult. Nice to know. Yes, we are. And yeah, definitely. And Pisces too. So I have a real thirst for it. Yeah, absolutely. I just have to close this door. My dog keeps opening this. Okay. So, I'm a Virgo sun, Leo rising, and moon in Capricorn. I'm too screwed emotionally. Oh, I like that. So your Virgo is who you really are. Your Leo is who people see you as. It's like it's your ego identity or your mask. And also your sun is your ego as well, but your mask is what protects you. So your Leo outside kind of protects you. It's like your defense. Like my Scorpio, it protects me. It's my defense in a way. It's my mask, and it cradles my inner part of me, and it protects my Piscean side. So yeah, our rising is... It's really interesting when you think about the dynamics between it all. And then your moon is your dreams. It's your visions. It's your secret self. It's kind of what drives you in terms of what makes you crazy, and what in terms of if something bothers you, it's a lot of times it has to do with the moon sign, because that's in your subconscious and in your dreams. I have a Virgo moon, which is very difficult because there's a subconscious part of me that really wants everything to be perfect and everything to be better than it was before, and it's like the constant strive for purity and perfection, and that's a hard thing to deal with. So you have your Capricorn, which is also about working hard and trying to move things in the right direction, make things more stable and grounded. And your Leo is very flamboyant, dramatic, interesting. Yeah, I love getting into astrology. Studied it for a long time. Yotish, basically I am from India. Oh, so that's why you're really into astrology. Yeah, and I love how astrology has been something so important to Hinduism for a very long time. And that's because they had visitors from the stars that basically helped them create the structure of the Vedic texts. But then, things get changed over many lifetimes of religious structures. But at least there's a lot of spiritual wisdom within those Vedic texts. I highly recommend people to read some of the things. They're very interesting. So welcome all the way from India. Alicia Bell, do you think animal conservation will improve? Yes, I do. I think it's going to have to, because I think that we're going to see a lack of supply with the meat industry. I think that we're going to have problems like we're seeing right now. I mean, you can't really, if you go to your grocery store, there might be a lot of meat gone. And that's because the factories have shut down. Well, at least some of them, or hopefully most of them. And I think that that's probably the direction that is needed, is that we need to get back to more of a humane way of treating animals. And that's really important for our psyche. Now, in regards to making everyone vegans or vegetarians, I don't think that we can make that choice to enforce that. I think that would cause a lot more issues and problems. So I think it would be a slow development of personal choice of what you would like to, where you would like to extend your energy towards. If you want to help animals and help with the supply and lessen the supply of meat, then you could take part in that. But I don't think that, I think also animal conservation in terms of like the parks and even some of the zoos and places, I do hope that it does get better. I hope that we do stop hunting animals for fun or for their fur or for their, their horns or whatever else humans want to take from animals. And I think that is something that we will have to have in the future, because it won't align to many people anymore. People will not like sport hunting. Most people, even meat eaters or those that still, eat meat and vegetables, they do not like sport hunting, just for fun or for fur or whatever else they're hunting for. And I think that is an example of us aligning our values to wanting all beings to not suffer. I do believe that there is a cycle, there's a circle of life, and there's definitely a hierarchy of that, but all life forms are on an equal value system when we start to look at their lives as being important. And I think that it will happen over time and very subtly. But I'm not sure if everybody on this planet will not be meat eaters or will be vegetarians or vegans. I think that maybe we'll have an earth that's going to be more of a variety of choices of people. But I think at some point we're going to have to compromise. We're going to have more of a system that satisfies the desires and the vibration of the vegans and vegetarians, and also a system that satisfies the desires and the vibrations of the meat eaters too. I think that's really important. In the Elven spiritual path, we do not say one should take one path or another in terms of their diet. Tolkien himself had his elves in Mirkwood eating meat, and some of his other elves, like in Lothlorien, they weren't said to be hunters, but the Noldar elves were hunters. And there's a variety of life choices within the elven realms. I think that there can be a variety of life choices, because if you think about the Noldar elves, so they chose to hunt, or the Mirkwood elves, they chose to hunt. And by the time they get to Rivendell, we're not sure if they ate meat, because that was not written in the text. But we do know in the past, in the Silmarillion, the Noldar elves did. And so I don't think that the Noldar elves looked badly upon the Mirkwood elves. And I think that that's where we have to go, is like, if we can have our consciousness where we don't judge each other for our life choices, but at the same time honor each other for our life choices. And if the meat eaters could help make a better system for the animals with the vegetarians and vegans, that would be great. Like if maybe only animals were killed only when they're older age, and it was totally free range base. I mean, that's the only way I can see it be something that would be morally just, because right now it's just terrible what's happening. Alicia Bell, I was interested in pursuing paleontology and paleobotany and paleoecology and help with wildlife conservation and resource management. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think that absolutely, if you enter into a subject like that and you help with animal conservation from a place of high awareness, you can come up with some ideas that can really help that field. So yeah, it's about wherever our passions are and just showing up, and you are going to help that field, no doubt in my mind, with the awareness that you have about animals. Do you think that marine conservation will improve rainforest coral reefs? So the ocean is another subject that's a little bit tricky. The ocean is so vast. There are trenches that humans have not even discovered yet. And I do believe that there are alien civilizations that are living there. They find UFOs underneath the water all the time. And I absolutely do believe that we're going to find some life forms that we haven't discovered yet at all. And I would say that the ocean has a way of kind of cleansing itself. It's so big. It's so big. And the coral reefs and all of that, I think that we're going to get some help from the civilizations that are living underneath the ocean. I think that that's coming. So regardless if humans are not aware of themselves and the way that they treat the ocean, the beings that are living in the ocean that understand this about humans' ignorance about the ocean are helping it with their technology. And I think that's why the ocean hasn't gotten to the place where it's so bad yet. But I do think that as humans' consciousness evolves, they're going to stop throwing their plastic away or stop using so much plastic that ends up in the ocean. They're going to stop doing all these things that are terrible to ocean life, killing and hunting seals and sharks and whales and dolphins for really no reason except for sport. And I guess sometimes they eat, but they use other things from them. I would say that it would have to come if consciousness is going to evolve. And that's the only way that it would come. That's a good question. Hi, Shane. Welcome. Yes, very good. I used the I Ching to figure out my name in ancient Egypt. I won't say who, it sounds ridiculous, and saw myself dressed in their clothing, another vision. Was it, oh gosh, his name escapes me. Was it Aleister Crowley? Because he was really into ancient Egypt and I Ching and all of that. And he wore really decorative outfits because he was really into the occult. Into the whole symbology of the occult. But I don't know. You can tell me below if you want to answer. Yotish, yes, in nature to save Earth, we will have to think about animal conservation as well as the forest. Yeah, everywhere. I mean, and the more people get more into the unity consciousness, the more they'll care about all animals in some form. And some animals are going to die naturally, and some may have to die due to a balance that nature creates. But the whole killing animals for sport or torture or other terrible reasons is something that just won't align to the human consciousness once it evolves. I just don't see it in the future if we go down the path of what we are in terms of expanding our consciousness and our mind. I'm glad you're all telling me your sun signs. I'm gonna have to read it later so I get to know you and read your energy from your astrology signs. Let's see. This is getting so long, but I love chatting with you all. Let's see. Let's get off of the zodiacs, although I love that subject. And you can watch my one that was kind of a mistake because I couldn't share the screen, but I talked about how I read my natal chart, and I just kind of go through like how I read the actual chart when you know it. So if that helps you. Oh, here's a good one. About the animals. Yes, very good. I hope all the animals venturing out into the cities all over the world won't be treated poorly after lockdown, if there is an after lockdown. Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's like that show that was on Netflix, I believe. It was when nature takes over when humans are gone. Like what happens when humans are gone? And it's like the animals are actually coming out and walking around. And I actually like that. I see a world that could be like that if we were all at the same level of respect for them. I think that could happen. Because then they would also be at the level of connection with us. And so there wouldn't be the danger. But that's a whole other future. Let's see. Dylan, you started a fast. Also, I started a 3-day fast. Any ideas I can do while to skyrocket my frequency? Oh, that's great that you, yeah, fasting is really great. You know why it's spiritually good for you is because it gets you out of the physical obsession with the material world. Sometimes we just eat just to pleasure our senses. We don't even need the food. So a fast, Jesus did a fast, Muhammad did a fast, lots of different like prophets or ascended masters. Buddha did a fast. He ate one little grain of rice for like 40 days. And that's the thing, is like a fast always teaches you the spiritual truth that you are more than your body, or you're more than just the physical needs and desires of the body. And it's more about getting you in touch with the spiritual. Any ideas to help skyrocket your frequency? Meditate while you fast. That's what Buddha did. He sat underneath a Bodhi tree and ate one grain of rice. And I think sometimes he did take water for the 40 days, but that was a really extreme fasting. All of the ascended masters who fasted, they also meditated at the same time. So that was part of their fasting. They weren't just fasting, doing regular things. They were fasting while they were sitting and thinking and contemplating deeper. So I hope that helps you. Yes, very good. I hope all the animals, you said that. Sam, hi Kimberell. What do you think about David Icke? Coming from a Muslim background, sometimes I wonder, why would God, Allah, create this world? What are your thoughts on this? David Icke, yeah. So I was aware of him many years ago, and I think that sometimes he taps into a collective sense of fear. And it's not necessarily to bring fear, but he's trying to kind of bring awareness. But I do sometimes think he goes overboard. And you can, that's the danger, is that when you play that game with looking into the darkness stares back at you, and then you get really onto that. I was there, I would say, for about 2 years. I was really looking into the dark side of things. And I think that he goes to that extreme. And I don't think he catches himself because he has an audience that loves that and gives him money for it. You know, my husband said the funniest thing, and it's so true. During this pandemic, the number one movies, or at least like top of the charts, guess what they have been? Virus pandemic movies like Outbreak and Contagion, because the human psyche likes to scare itself sometimes. It's part of the thrill. It's like why we ride roller coasters. And David Icke provides that. And I think that's why he's so popular. And that's why I don't take all of his words as truth, because I think that he goes down that path that the audience kind of helps support, really. It's that conspiracy fear path. But there are some things to be aware of, and he does bring it out into the open, and I have appreciated him for that. So I honor both sides of what he brings. And at the same time, I do see that he does go into the extreme where people that are more in a higher state of frequency, they're like, oh, he's just fear-based, because you can feel that. It doesn't feel right to you to constantly be thinking about all of the negative, dark things, the vampires in the world or whatever else in the world that he talks about that are doing all these terrible things. At some point, you have to have a positive alignment in order to enjoy life. Now, there is a great video about him talking about love. And I think that when he gets into his positive states, I think that he can reach that unity Christ consciousness. But I think that we can easily slip and go the other way where we're just all about fear and to scaring ourselves. So that's my opinion on David Icke, truly. And what about Muslim background? Oh, about with Sufism. So I wonder, why would God, Allah, create this world? What are your thoughts on this? And I'm so sorry about the vacuum cleaner, as you can hear. And my dog. I'm just going to get my dog and have him on my lap. Okay. Come on, Meow. Come on. Come on. Come on, sweetie. You can see my lap. Okay. Come. There you go. He wants to say hi. So I would say, well, first of all, your question was, why did God, Allah, create this world? It's not a he, it's not separate from you. So think, you're part of this energy. Why do you want to live your life? Think about that. I think that question, there's that answer. Why would the universe want life forms to exist on planets? Why would we want to live our life into pet dogs? And why would we want to be able to connect to each other? And why would we want to experience all this? I think that ultimately that's our question that we have to ask ourselves. Look at your own life, and then you'll get those answers. And I don't think that it's a punishment. I think it only as an experience, both good and bad, and a learning one at that as well. So I hope that answered your question there. Okay, Edward, I've noticed small bird populations increase in my area in the last few months, FYI. That's great news. Yeah, because there's probably nobody hunting them, or they feel that they can populate, reproduce more safely in their environments. So I think that's great. Yes, Earth is healing during this time. There's no doubt about it. We have had so many messages, articles, and if you're just observant, you can see that Earth is healing. So in a lot of ways, this was supposed to happen, and there's also some negative about it, but there's also some positive about it as well. And I think that that's the way we have to look at it. Okay, let's see. Yes, very good. Vegan versus meat. Plants have souls too. They are alive after all, so one isn't really better than the other. Far less animals could be killed for food, though. I mean, there comes the question of balance, right? Are we going to kill all the plant, or are we going to eat all the plants? Or are we going to eat all the animals? And is there a balance there? And plants having a soul. So soul to me is a consciousness. And yes, in some way, a plant is aware, because we know that in the sensitive plants that they'll close up when someone's near them. Trees can sense things. Plants can sense. And I absolutely do believe that they are aware in some form. Are they a complex consciousness like us or animals? Not as much. Well, animals are not really that complex, but I think some animals represent a complex consciousness, like this one. You know, he chooses to come in and get some attention and love. That's a complex consciousness that's choosing to come by me, and a little bit of instinctual. But yeah, I think it's really something that we have to kind of ask ourselves. I'm all about balance. I never think that we should do anything all the way to one end or to the other in extreme. It causes division, because you'll always have that other side that is against that. I'm all about compromise and equality. And if there's some way that we can have, like I said, the meat eaters help us build a better system for the animals, then that could be really maybe the answer to what people would like. I know there are some vegans and vegetarians that would want the whole world to not eat animals, but it comes down to personal choice. It's like, are you going to eat animals, or are you going to get mad at others because they're eating animals? Or is it more about the situation that the animals are in? And then how can we build a teamwork and a cooperation together in order to build better factories? And I have news on this. I have personal touch with somebody that has a lot of money, a lot of resources, and she is just a wonderful soul, because she herself is a vegetarian that cares so much about animals, and she's donating like almost all of her money to go to different farms and try to get them to use more humane methods. And she is doing her best right now in order to change the meat industry. And this is how it goes. And she herself told me that she doesn't expect everybody to not eat meat, but what she expects is for these factories to have better conditions. And this is what she does. She gives money to these factories so that they can start doing more plant-based meat, creating more free range, have more of the land and the space to do that. She's thinking about vertical farming rather than outwards, but vertical farming, and having more of like an indoor environment in the factory so that the animals have the grass and they have the sunlight, because it would be like a greenhouse, not a closed factory of steel and, limestone, and slaughtering animals without sunlight or grass or anything. I mean, it gets really bad. So we have big players that have big hearts for animals that are working with the farming industries. And if we just keep on supporting them, keep thinking that it's going to get better, it will. And I do believe that. And I have personal relationship with somebody who is working that way. Rain, hi, welcome, Mike Gavanin. A lot of the starseeds and indigos that are here on a spiritual path have been experiencing interference from lower dimensional beings. Yeah, I agree. And it's just really about, I have received those attacks too. And it's just about reminding yourself that you're in control, that nobody can take control of you. Nobody is dictating your life, and nobody is ultimately penetrating you with their psychic attacks in a long-lasting way. You might feel it. You might feel a little bad, and you might feel something within you and around you even in a negative way, but then you can get past it by just remembering your direct connection to source once again. And that is really kind of the shield that really helps me. So I hope it helps you. Lady Ravenhill. Just an interesting quote that I came back to time again from the Stoics. Religion is regarded by the common people as true, by the wise as false, and by rulers as useful. Seneca. And Seneca, yeah, that's the Stoic that I talked about, like in the idea of a humanitarian philosopher that wanted to teach ethics, and Stoicism is something that's coming back now. It's a philosophy and a way of life that I think is really related to the elves. I've showed in a couple videos, and it's true what he's just said. That's perfectly said. The common people, the masses, yes, those that may be uneducated themselves about more of the spiritual truth and things, that could be true. And by the wise as false. Yeah, because the wise is all about the experience of being enlightened and awakened to the fact where they don't follow anybody else's spiritual path, but their own. And that's really where wisdom comes in, is when you follow your own spiritual path, that's within you, because you listen to that voice now and you're no longer looking outside of yourself. And rulers as useful. Gosh, is that true? Yeah, to rule over the people with fear. That's a huge thing that, religion has done. Okay. Yes, very good. You make me laugh. You're funny. I won't be boiling 1 grain of rice a day, thanks. Yeah, I think he just had like a bowl or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's part of the stories. And it might just be metaphorical, but it could have been true. I mean, could have been something that he did actually do. Okay, yes, very good. No, God forbid it would be Mr. Crowley. I incarnated in ancient Egypt as a pharaoh. Okay, good. Yeah, Aleister Crowley is interesting of a character. I have one video on him because I really enjoyed his book Moonchild, but I take everything with a grain of salt with him. Thank you, White Fairy Queen. You said my dog is adorable. Yay. He says, I know. His name is Neo. He's a precious soul. He's like my dear dog, my dear fox dog. He's very gentle. He's 8 years old. Lady Ravenhill, someone I talked to recently about Pleiadians, and they wanted to know if this was related to Scientology, and I felt unequipped to properly answer them. How would you respond to this comparison? Absolutely not. Scientology is a made-up religion by Dan Hubbard. Yes, Dan Hubbard. I think that's his name. They came up to me in the city one day, years and years and years ago, and you take like a metal rod in your hands that's attached to this machine, and they determine whether you have a clear conscience or not. Mr. Hubbard created this religion, and he is quoted as saying, if I want to be a billionaire or a millionaire, whatever it is, if I want to be rich, I will create my own religion. And he did. And there is a movie called Clear about Scientology on Netflix that all should watch because it's very informative if you ever want to know more about it. So there are some good things about Scientology. I'll say this, that they're about, what they do is basically you go in and you talk about, you go under kind of a regression mode or state where you talk about your past experiences. And the whole goal of Scientology is to become more clear of conscience. But what's wrapped around that, so I think that's a great thing. Great, clear your conscience. Wonderful. But what's wrapped around that is the idea that there is an alien god that's on some planet, and it is about not looking at creation as a whole, but as a creator deity that somehow caused a lot of souls to, I guess, be uncleared in their conscience. And so we're about trying to clear ourselves from that. It's very strange, but no, that is not what the Pleiadians believe at all. They are looking at, when they say creation, and you could go to the Enlightened Human Part 1 or Part 2, or tell somebody to listen to it, and then they'll understand what they're thinking of in terms of they're seeing the entire universe or multiverse as part of the same source, and we are extensions of it, and we experience our life differently, and it is about soul development until we get back to that source. It has nothing to do with Scientology, although maybe the consciousness cleared through psychology of talking about your problems, but not really. No, very different. But it was a good question, and you can direct them to listening to the original Pleiadian messages of Samyase. And I think if you resonate with those words, then you'll understand where they're coming from and where you are coming from. Leo, I had 3 elf past lives. Tolkien was very accurate on his descriptions. I know you like the Pleiadians, but they are all malevolent and were the main ones at the end of the magic era 3,000 years ago. That's not accurate at all. Not in any form of any of their messages. I would suggest that you go listen to Enlightened Human Part 1 and Part 2. And they're very much like the fairies, and they might have been part of the fairies as well that used to be on here. Star fairies, you know, maybe not originally from Earth. Maybe they were visitors. But you have to go to the original source, and you'll understand. You'll see the connection between the Pleiadians. And they were not malevolent, not evil in any way. Their messages are pure love, and that's really what you just have to get in touch with, is the original source. Dylan, the sun pulls, the moon pushes, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's why people see the light tunnels. That's pulling them into the next realm, and the moon holding parts of our DNA. Well, the moon acts on our body for sure, and our emotional body, because we're made up of mostly water. And the moon's electromagnetism pulls on the water of the tides of the ocean and the water of the tides in our being. And so I do believe that there's an activation from the celestial bodies in terms of electromagnetism and all that. But more so, what DNA activation to me means is realization, a consciousness switch going off within your mind, where you open up channels within yourself, and that activates a part of you. Because energetic, we're just all energetic. I mean, we just experience ourselves physically, but we're all moving masses of molecules anyway. So activation of DNA would be the activation of the mind, a consciousness shift that would either connect the DNA strands, enlighten them, make them glow, make them grow too. There's lots of different ways that we can see that. But that's kind of what I think, that it has to do with the mind turning on. Scarlet Missing, I'm thankful I came across your YouTube. I thought I was crazy. I identified so much spiritually with the elves, but I'm not alone. No, you are not. There are many of us. And really, that's what it means, is like the elves kind of represent that state of awakening within humans, because Tolkien considered them the wiser beings on Earth than Arda. And that is a potential that humans can have if they remember Earth, they remember their connection to nature, and they act accordingly towards one another and towards others. They will also be the wiser beings and learn from the elves. And those of us that resonate with the elves, so to some people that might be seen as arrogant or conceited, but what it means is that you recognize yourself vibrating at that level of consciousness, that you are well connected to nature, that you do understand the interconnection with everything, and that you do your best to live in harmony with others, to help others and not hinder them or hurt them and stop them from their path. And I think that that is something that makes more sense when we say we spiritually resonate with the elves. That's what I feel, is that it's something that we consciously can all get to. And it's just about when you awaken to that state. And everybody is on different timelines and different incarnations of what they have to learn and pathways. And so for those that really resonate with the elves, you're resonating with the wiser beings of Arda because you're connecting to Earth, you're reconnecting, you're getting in touch with a primal part of yourself. So, and the Pleiadians are all about nature. They said something very important in my video where I talked about the Christ consciousness, that the laws of the universe, the actual laws of the universe, can be found and understood in nature if someone pays attention, rather than listening to a priest or somebody trying to tell you what to believe. If you just go out into nature and are observant and are in a place of awareness and stillness, you may get some clues and some understandings of how life works, how your own life works, and how the universe actually moves. And that's where the Pleiadians' connection with the elves are right on. Whether they be elfin beings or not, it's more about their connection to nature that they represented. And I believe that when humans reconnect to nature, they have an opportunity to evolve into the beings like the elves. And whether we biologically evolve into looking like elves, or whether we just act more like the elves, and then that kind of reflects our world and we have more of like elven realms around the world, that's all, I think, a potential. I don't think it's too far off, but it's just how far we want to go with that. So thank you. I'm so happy to meet you all that also feel that way. Dylan, even if there were wars, we're supposed to come together at this time. Yes, I agree. I think, we're at a time where if we didn't come together, if we didn't take this pause, I think that we would have seen some drastic damage on Earth that probably would make our world die in a lot of ways, because the Pleiadians and many others had a message saying that if we didn't change our ways around 2020 or 2023, I think that was the year. I have to go back to the messages. If we didn't change our ways, then we would have seen a really terrible destruction on Earth that would really hurt nature and the environment, and ultimately people, because we're connected to the environment. So in many ways, this is about Earth healing and we getting that chance. And I really do see that. And yes, we are supposed to come together at this time emotionally, because we also were very divided. And so now people are acting really nice to each other. They're kinder to each other. They're concerned about each other. They don't want to give each other this virus. So it makes people be more positive in general. And that's really kind of a nice reminder to have, is that ultimately we are here for each other. We are here to not only live our lives, but make sure that we don't harm each other, and we can help each other when we can. It's like the movie Arrival. I keep seeing that the virus has a lot of this connection. With the movie Arrival about the aliens, they made a puzzle for humanity to put together all over the world. And the only reason why they made that puzzle was so that humanity could work together, because they were so separated and were warring. And that's the big message about that movie. And I feel in many ways, this virus is that puzzle that we are putting together, because globally it's affecting all nations. And so we have a puzzle that we have to figure out the larger picture together with all our pieces that we each have. All right, let's see some more. Scarlett, my guides told me that you just made me realize they told me you are not alone. We are many. Oh, good. I'm so happy. I'm glad. It's nice when you get that confirmation from your guides, which are real beings, by the way. They are multi-dimensional aspects of you or the civilization that you used to come from, or that's going to be part of your future or not, part of your destiny, or there could be many layers to who your guides are. But they are very real, and they are a protective force. Because the universe just wants every soul to develop itself to its highest potential. And because of that goal of life, we have helpers along the way. And our helpers come in many forms, whether each other on the same reality existence, or whether helpers from above or helpers from below too, and from a different dimension. But we are always on that same path to spiritually develop, to know thyself, to know the ultimate self. And that can mean many different things for all of us. And that's the beauty of it, is that nobody has the same perspective of the self. We all have different perspectives. Lady Ravenhill, good. About L. Ron Hubbard. It was Ron Hubbard, a science fiction author of all things. I don't know much about their practices except they're hoping to raise their energy to return to that God's intergalactic war. Whereas the Pleiadians are just beings like us that have ascended to a point where they can just focus on improving the lives of other beings in the universe without a selfish motive. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Well said. Rain Walden, I'd love to hear you say something about Legolas. Oh, well, what would you like me to say? I have so much on Legolas in terms of the Kindness of Elves video. I have part 1, part 2, part 3, and Legolas has a lot to say within Tolkien's story. He really was that positive energy within the Fellowship many times. I don't know what else I can say. Tell me more, get more specific, and I'll see if I can. Yes, very good. A lot of wars happened in the Orion region, so I've heard. Yeah. I think so too. I think every civilization that we think of that's an alien civilization has had some kind of wars, some kind of learning. It's like a reflection of humanity. Whatever humanity is going through with all its wars, at one point, aliens from another planet went through the same thing. And whether they evolve past wars indicates whether they become a peaceful civilization that is full of wiser beings that don't kill each other and allow their civilization to really be designed and evolve into a galactic high technology world that we can only imagine, that looks like magic to us. But to them, it's just science and physics. But we're going to have to get over the wars so that we can focus on putting our money towards that, towards building that galactic world. Let's see. Yes, very good. I also feel a connection to the Orion system. A lot of races had to leave and live on Sirius, etc. Yeah, I think so too. Like the chronological order of things is that Lyra constellation was first. Orion is actually the newest constellation. So if beings lived around those stars, it would mean that they lived in other dimensions. Like the Pleiades, the Pleiadians say that they don't live within our dimension, and they don't. They're in 5th dimension. They're not in 5th dimension, they're in stage 5 of spiritual development. They're in the 6th dimension. That's why they're not yet, and they probably could be in the fifth dimension too. So when the whole world moves to the fifth dimension, that's when they come into our reality, right? We get it as we move to the dimension of existence where another being is at, then they appear in front of us. It's like they were always there. It was just they were waiting for us to become, to move to their level. And there's a great movie, I think it's called Midnight. It's a Netflix movie about a boy that was born with abilities. He's like an alien boy. And he teaches his father and he teaches others that what's so phenomenal about this movie, I have to see if it's Midnight. I really want you to see it now. Midnight Special. Yes, Midnight Special. You have to watch this movie after this. So it's about this boy that comes from an alien civilization. He has a power of light within him, and his father's trying to protect him. And eventually what you find out is that he sees the advanced civilization that is living on top of our world in terms of dimensions. So it's like you can walk through another being, and you could walk through like their house, but because they live on another dimension, you don't feel it or experience it or don't even know that they're there. But he's able to see that next dimension, that other dimensional realm that he comes from, and that he somehow ended up on Earth probably to help others see that dimension when they were ready. It's a great movie, and just how they do it is, it's true. Like sometimes I look around my space and I'm like, is someone right there and I just can't see them yet? Is something there and we just can't see it? Because Y.B. Yeats, one of the poets on fairy, he always talked about that the fairies are all around us. It's just about our senses increasing to be able to see these beings. And I think that that's where the fairies have retreated. Many of us are products of them being on Earth, mingling with humans. And I think that many of them have retreated. And when we rise to their level once again, we may be able to see them. But we have to vibrate on that level of high morality and laws. Talking about the light elves and fairies, maybe not so much the darker ones, that maybe have more of a lower vibration, but the higher vibration. Okay, so let's see more. Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Any good elvish movies you would recommend? Hi, Rianne. Or Reen. I would say there are so many. I mean, Lord of the Rings, I think, by far is just one of the best visualizations for me, and just spiritually makes a lot of sense. I kind of enjoyed what was that one? The Shannara Chronicles. It's not really a movie, but it was good. I think that was interesting as a series, and I think that was a different perspective of elves. But I like that. I also liked, as far as a movie goes, there's an animation that's out. It's called Outward, or what is it? Outbound Elves, I think, or Outward Elves. I can't remember the name. And it is an animation about little blue elves that are searching for basically the magic again. It's Outward, or is it Outbound? One of those. It's on Netflix right now. I can't find it. Sorry, I'm hitting the wrong buttons here. So that is a new animation that's out on elves, but we need far more movies with elves. We don't have that much. As far as fairies and the different types of fae, I would say that Legend is very good to show that kind of fairy realm. Pan's Labyrinth, although a little bit darker, that's a good way of seeing a little glimpse of the fairy realm, although it's a little bit dark. And I think that's good. Yeah, Legend, that was the other one I said. Labyrinth, there's more of that fantasy element there. I think Dark Crystal is wonderful in talking about the Gelfling and the way that those elves, because they're like little elfling beings, I would say that I resonate with them a lot. And so I think that the Dark Crystal is an amazing series that just came out, although it was really just a comic book or just stories before. And it was also an old movie in the 80s, which also was one of my favorites. So I don't know. I can't really think of any other ones. If anybody else has some comments, go ahead and put them down. Okay, so I think, oh my gosh, is this getting so long? I'm glad you guys can hang out here. Scarlet Missing, how elves came into my life was through the video game World of Warcraft. Night elves, yes. Kaldore in their native language, Children of the Stars, of how I envision my soul, my collective. So I used to play World of Warcraft many years ago too, and whenever I was a night elf, a blood elf, but also more so a night elf, because I really resonated with that type of world and that environment, I always played the elf character, and I loved going to the elven realms. There's particular laws within the elven world or the fairy world in general that I just feel like really resonating with me. And I feel like many people feel that too. And in some ways it's connected to Christ consciousness because it's about being awakened and aware of all things and treating it accordingly. And that's not all fays and elves, because they're beings that also act differently. But me too, World of Warcraft, and also there's a Lord of the Rings online game that I play, and there was a game called Aeon that I used to play where you're like a winged elf. You can be a winged elf character, and that was fun. White Fairy Queen, have you seen the video of the crashed alien ship with a female inside, and what did you think of it? What did you think she might have been from? Is it real? Oh, I have not seen it. Please give me the link. I've kind of stayed off of the UFO sightings because I know that they're there. And so I haven't been really looking into it lately. So I would love to see it. Sometimes I get definitely some feelings like something is real or not. Scarlet Missing, and although I have not explored much of Pleiadians, I can tell they are similar, if not the same energy source. Yeah, they're very similar, very similar. That's why I connect to both the Pleiadian messages and also the way that the elves are in Tolkien's stories. And a little bit of the Gelflings in the Dark Crystal, although the Gelflings, the Pleiadians, or at least Semyase with her original message, they have more, they're more sovereign beings, so they would never allow another race to take over them. So the Gelflings would be like maybe their earlier stages of Pleiadians, when they were really innocent and naive and maybe controlled by others. But then like millions of years later, maybe they finally learned, and now they're more secure beings. When you listen to their message, they're full of self-confidence. They know who they are at the core. Semyase certainly did. Which is interesting. This is why I can tell that they're real, because they're different from Billy Meyer himself. Billy Meyer did not have the confidence. He did not have that energy that Semyase had. And that's when you can tell the difference between the two. And you know that there's two voices within those messages. So the book I had was The Contact Reports. I put it away, but that's the one I was reading. I just looked on eBay. It's $500 now. When I bought it, it was $50. So it's going up. But you can also go to the website about the Pleiadians. I think it's the Billy Meyer one, the Mankind. And I can leave that if you want. And that is original transcription information. It's called The Future of Mankind. That's the website. And it's futureofmankind.co.uk/Billy. So that could take you there. Hi, Faith. Welcome back. I know, we're just hanging out. I guess this is what quarantine life is, right? Like nothing to do except for chat. But this is good. I mean, I think I want to move on from here. I don't want to focus so much on old religion and Jesus and all of that, but I'm happy to discuss it if I need to, because I just wanted to explain myself a little bit more, because I know that could have came as a surprise. And so, yeah, this was a way to just kind of talk more about that. And now we're just chatting about whatever, I guess. Okay, I got another question here. Crozo, do you know anything about the Leo zodiac sign? Is it connected to the Elven world? I was born 7th of August. Well, zodiac signs are not connected to the Elven world. Zodiacs are just personalities and the way that source divides itself and experiences itself differently on a mechanism of the celestial bodies, so that we're all not the same. We're not robots. So it's like a perfect system of allowing this like perfect balance of really unique souls and having so many differences that makes a world collective go around, because we all have different gifts and abilities and traits and personalities and quirks and all that. So zodiac signs have nothing to do with the Elven realm itself. The Elven realm itself could have beings that are born in different zodiac signs, and I have a video on it. If you're an Elven soul, and if your zodiac sign is a certain thing, what kind of elf it would make you. And I know a lot about Leo zodiac signs. A lot of my friends have been Leos, and I know much about the lion. The Leo is a big-hearted soul. Things to watch out for Leos are our tendency to dominate over others, or to kind of throw their weight around, because they are so confident. They come in with that sun sign of the Leo, the ruler, the big cat, but they are warm-hearted. They are very expressive, and they will tell you what they feel, and they stick up for their friends, and they are the ones that will definitely be someone to fear if you don't come from a good place. And I mean, there could be negative qualities of Leo and positive, but I'm kind of focusing more on the positive right now. And the other thing about Leos is that they are a fire sign. So they are a catalyst for change. They also are fixed, which means that they are stubborn. They are not easily adaptable to new change, though they inspire change because they are so openly expressive. Many Leos are musicians and entertainers because they love the limelight. Now, not all Leos will be attention seekers, because personalities are different, and it's about your natal chart, what other planetary influences that you have in your natal chart. And the things about zodiac signs and all that, I will get into more on another video, but basically it is proof of the unification of all things, that we run, at least within this universe and the planetary systems that is closest to Earth, the energies that are the vibrations and the frequencies, the energies of the planets and the constellations and all that that's aligned to your birth, determine the energies that you are infused with. And what has created those energies is the collective archetypes that we have all come up with before space-time, basically. And we are also creating as we go, which I have realized is like we also create archetypes together as a collective. The more one person gets one idea, and then it just kind of sticks and it grows and grows and grows, that becomes an archetype. And it's because it's the way that we connect and can communicate to each other. We all at some point can see the same things. And so the zodiacs represent that. And why the zodiacs are within our lives is to know the self, really, just to get more answers about who we are and to know others and understand how others, may act and what might be under their core. And so, yeah, I know a lot about Leos. I like Leos. Me being a Pisces, Leos and Pisces tend to get along. Sometimes my Leo friends have tried to dominate me because I can be a little bit more shyer or quiet. And it's just about Leos teaching me in my life, they have to be more outward, more forward, and more expressive, and not fear that, and have the confidence and the courage to be that lioness or lion that sometimes you need to be in life. And I have taught my Leo friends how to maybe swim with the flow of the waves and not always want to be attention seeking, or to come back a little bit and observe life and to get in touch with your intuition and more the dreamier side and nature of yourself. So when you have friends of different zodiacs within your life, they are helping you reach and achieve spiritual development and balance. So pay attention to your friends and what their signs are, because a lot of their qualities that they have, they are infusing within you. And you are infusing your qualities within them. And that's how the zodiacs really work in terms of what their benefit is here. And yeah, I love astrology. Lady Ravenhill, what would you say to scientists that use facts about the age of the Pleiades being too young to support life for another 2 billion years? I'd say it's a matter of their dimensional space-time. Yep, exactly. The Pleiadians, Semyase goes into it more, that they're not in the realm of the Pleiades that we are in, but they are in another time-space dimension, and they exist around the Pleiades. And so that's where they are coming from. And Billy Meyer called them the Pleiadians, and the J, I discovered intuitively, is because he himself was a Swedish man, and the Norwegian language has a lot of J's in it. So I think that he added that J as kind of a coloring of the messages of where they were coming from. But Semyase says specifically that they are humanoids from the Pleiades, and they are in a different dimension, not our dimension. And that's how they know so much, and they can go through different time warps and hyperspace and all that. Totally different reality. And I explained this on my master class of the 3rd and 4th dimensions. Funny name. But it's more like I explained how the thing about dimensions is that the higher up dimension you are, all the lower dimensions are accessible to you. So the Pleiadians from their dimension have every other lower dimension accessible. It's like you master a dimension, it's like done. Like that's your dimension. You have acquired all of that knowledge. And when you raise up to the new dimension, you can then look back down and you can understand beings at that other lower dimension that you have just came out of, or that you have come out of years and ages ago. So that's what the Pleiadians are. They are, if you think about source coming from one consciousness, it's divided into 11 dimensions. Now, there are more dimensions, but physicists right now focus on 11, and I focus on 11 because my mind will just explode thinking about the dimensions outside of the 11th dimension. But when you think about it, all source is on different dimensions. So when beings are at a higher dimension, they have access to all souls, information, the civilization information, everything below it. And that's why the Pleiadians know so much about Earth. They are just able to look down at us from a higher point of view. But we are going to meet them one day, or we are going to get to their level one day. And That's because I know in my heart that all things have to go back up the ladder of consciousness back to Prime Source one day. So that's what I would say. Wise Tales Art. Remember when we were kids playing with other kids and would fight over who was making up the rules of the games? And if we didn't like their rules, we would just stop playing with them. Let's do that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a lot of people are doing that. I kind of stopped playing with people that want to play those games. Like, I've entered into a new experience where I don't need that type of drama in my life. Like, I would rather have more of an open experience of harmony and collaboration and joy and fun times. So I'm really interested in connecting people on that level, and everybody else that doesn't want that, well, I let them go on their own path, and I try to give them messages, or I try to help them if I can. But yeah, exactly. You stop playing their games. And when you stop playing their games, you focus on your own game. And what is your own game? It's your life living by your rules and what you want to see in your reality. And I believe in that. Really great comment. Thank you. Let's see. Yes, very good. They can hurry up with the Lord of the Rings series. Yeah, I know. Oh, that would be great. Yeah, because I'm excited. We need some more Elven realms out there visually. I think that'll be really fun. I hope they do a great job. And I hope that they stick to the book as much as they can. They're doing the second age, not the first age, not the Silmarillion. One day I hope somebody does the Silmarillion. I've looked into that, and it seems like Peter Jackson might not be able to, but we'll see. But yeah, I hope the series is good too, that Amazon is doing. Bright was an interesting take on modern elves. Yeah, I kind of liked that movie too. I did. It was funny because it was following that archetype of the elves being like arrogant and prideful, but it showed another side of them too in there, which I appreciated. I did like it. I did. I found myself rooting for the magic to come back again. I felt bad that their magic was taken, and I know that was the dark elves. And I was like, oh no, I'm on the side of the dark elves now in this movie. But I did like the main character, the actual Bright, the elf that was Bright. I forgot what she was, but she was the one that was like running around with Will Smith. It was kind of like a Fifth Element vibe. I liked that movie. It was good. Yes, very good. How has a decent D&D movie not been made yet? Yeah, right? I haven't played D&D, but I would love to see a movie like that. Lady Ravenhill, I was watching your Elven races video the other day. Did you ever pick up on other Elven race types? I haven't focused my mind lately on that because I've been focusing here on Earth, like building the Elven spiritual path and focusing on other things. But I'll get back to that for sure. I will. I'll have to do some astral traveling, some psychonauting, and I'll get back with some information. Scarlet Missing, thank you for the website. I'll look into it. Good. I'm glad. Let's see. Crozo, thanks for the answer. Everything that you said about the Leo is so true about me, but the problem with me is that my moon sign is Cancer, so I'm really sensitive, but I want to be more noticed. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a dynamic that's like a push and pull. Yep. And that's true. Like somebody said before that the moon and the sun kind of push and pull on each other. They do. And in many ways, yes, your moon sign is going to pull you, but it makes you a complex character because it makes you have that cancering, that Cancer type of, attributes within you, and then also the Leo. And that's your unique Leo. Because if everybody this is the brilliant thing about the universe, the celestial bodies in the natal chart. If everyone born in a particular month were all the same Leo traits, and we only focused on the sun traits, then we would only have 12 personalities in this world. That's it. So the natal chart gives us our planetary influences that add to our sun sign. And then that is what allows us to have millions of Leos or billions, billions of Leos. And so it's really about that variety. And that's something, so people who don't know astrology, they say this a lot, that, oh, well, not all Pisces can be the same. Well, no, they're not. It really has to do with your makeup of your whole natal chart. You can't just look at your sun sign. I'm Aquarius, what to do? Well, this is your age. Welcome, this is your age. Pisces was the last age, that was my age. And in many ways, Pisces is supposed to symbolize those that have gone through those ages, and they can be like a sage to help with that information. And I believe that in some way. I mean, Pisces seem like old souls, but Aquarius, this is your time of rebirth, and this is your time to shine. It's like Aquarius really symbolized like the new souls with like new perspectives, really weird, unique, never seen before. And you're about harmony and community. So you're about like actually coming together. So in a lot of ways, it represents the new earth, like all of us coming together. And that's why the hippies of the 60s sang about it. Aquarius, they were always about the Aquarius age, because from the early 1800s of the psychics and the mystics like Edgar Cayce and some others that talked about the Aquarius age coming, the hippies were like, yes, age of coming together in peace and harmony. And that was the Aquarius. And the Pisces had some good to it as well, with some of its mysticism and spiritual knowledge that it passed down. But I'm excited. We're into the new age of Aquarius as a Pisces. I feel like I can retire. Sean McKenzie, I'm Libra. Oh, that makes sense. Libra is all about the scales of balance and equality and never stepping on anyone's toes, just making sure everybody is always happy and making sure everything's fair. You are the scales of balance. I've seen that in you too. And then Sven, welcome. Everything is life. How can it not support itself? Yeah, it's true. It's true. That's a great way to look at it. Jim Smith, do you know about live wands made from trees who still their spirit connected to the wand? I'm interested in how they enhance, heal, and protect us. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. So different trees that have their barks made into different wands, I think that they do represent a different type of frequency and vibration, but at the same point, it's all coming from nature. So to me, I don't see too much of a difference. Although if you would like to focus on a tree spirit, that would be a birch dryad versus an oak, nymph, then you absolutely can. The elder tree mother, that fairy tale, if you want to have a wand, it's about you connecting to a particular spirit and energy that you want to really focus on, and then having that wand that symbolizes that. And then that's how it can protect you more, because you believe in it, because it resonates more with you and aligns to who you are. And so I would say that, like, Harry Potter did a great job of that too, right? With the idea of different wands that were made with different, like the unicorn hair, or like the different parts of a tree that symbolize something. I would say that, yeah, that was a really true part of magic, that it is about honing in onto your particular energy that you connect to. Like who was it? I think it was Hermione, or no, it was Fleur. Her wand, Fleur, like the ones that were the French girls in Harry Potter, her wand was a wand of a silky, or like some type of like enchanted, like fairy spirit. And so in many ways, that's what it represented. So I think that is something that, well, silky is like a horse, like a water spirit horse. I can't think of what it is, but I think it's like some type of fairy. And that, I think, is where you can go with your wands. But you don't necessarily need a wand to do magic. It's really just about your personal power, your mental power and will. And Tolkien's elves didn't really use a wand. They were not like the wizards. They were more they used more mentalism, where they could enchant things with their mind using certain words, or singing, or just simply thinking and aligning that vision and thought to what they wanted to see. White Fairy Queen. I will message you the one I found now, as it won't let me hear. Female alien. Oh, the video about the female alien? Okay, yes, please do. That's good. Let's see. Kamel, I'm Aquarius and my moon is Sagittarius. Is it bad? I don't believe any zodiac signs are bad. They have negative traits and positive traits, or traits that you need to work on. That's like it's like part of your karmic path and your goal to move forwards from something that could be a shortcoming, and that you have to move forwards in life for the spiritual development of you. But no, that's not bad. Your Aquarius is simply, that's your sun sign. So you're strange and interesting and new and kind of weird to people, or you're also all about community and harmony and living in a happy, peaceful world. And your moon is in Sagittarius, so you want to go on adventure. You do not sit still. The Sagittarius in you is all about moving forwards. So that can make an Aquarius very impatient and kind of not able to settle down with one person or one thing. And Aquarius have a hard time settling down with partners as it is, unless they really, really vibe with somebody and somebody can really accept them as who they are. But I think that's a great combination. It makes you you. Crozo, so all these zodiac ages are like themes of how they would affect the world, people. Yep, you got it. They're themes. Yep, the age of Aquarius, the age of now, what are we going to move into after the Aquarius? It would be January, February. It would be age of Aries. So then that would be many, many years from now. But yes, it's themes. Let's see. White Fairy Queen, you're a triple Pisces? Wow, you are very dreamy in all respects. You probably look dreamy, act dreamy. Everything's about your intuition and feelings. That's great. Yes, very good. I actually used an elf subliminal and found myself becoming really intolerant of other people's untidiness, and my ears became pointier. Yeah, all of that will, because your thoughts are going to start creating your reality a little bit around you more. And you might, because the elves are not dirty creatures, you might definitely feel that way. Oh, and Sven, no zodiac sign is better or worse. All contain, what did you say? Just jumped. Sorry about that. All contain all 12 of them in some way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no better or worse. There's no hierarchy. It's really just about making this world full of different souls. And we all have really interesting qualities about us, and we all help each other with those. Morwindon, lunar at night. A silky is a deal that can transform into a human form. They would do it for reproductive purposes. It's a druid story. Yeah. Silky. Yeah. The silky is like a water horse spirit that can transform. And I think it could take other forms as well. I'm not sure it's been many years since Harry Potter, but I'm just saying that whole idea of the wand kind of connecting to the energy of the person, something that you see in Harry Potter. And I think something very true. I had a wand made of, I believe it's ash. Yes, it's ash, and it has like a lot of fairy angelic energy to it, because that's kind of what I wanted as a focus. But it really just sits on my fairy altar, and I use it when I want to, but it's not something that I use all the time. It just helps keep my focus on that. Lady Ravenhill, will you do more videos about the Sindarian language? I love hearing you speak it. Yes. I'm doing it Friday, actually, tomorrow. I'm going to, but it's not going to be live. So it'll just be posted whenever I get it done. But yeah, vowel part 2 is coming tomorrow. Absolutely. Because the first one I did like 2 years ago, I think, or a year ago, maybe. And I needed to do a second part. Okay. Crozo, this might be a weird question, but do you think dragons are older than angels and elves? So when it comes to age of energy, I see everything as all the same age on a very deep spiritual level. I do. But the way that elves and dragons and all of that enter into our collective, then that can make the age of the awareness of them within the humans. The Draco constellation itself is very old, much older than some of the other constellations that are closer to us, older than Sirius, older than Orion, older than the Pleiades. The Draco constellation is, I think, as old as Lyra or even older. And I believe that the dragon beings, and the dragon thought comes from the Draco constellation. And when they put together that constellation, they came up with the idea that it represented the dragons. And in some way, when we create gods or create beings, we are making them born. So when was that time? I'm not sure when exactly the human awareness of them came in. But I believe that every one of those kind of fairy elemental entity and energy is all one age. Now, angel to me is just a description of a being that decides to be a messenger for others. And they are born at the same time of the Big Bang or of the universe. And I believe that they work to assist. And I believe that you could either have angels that were created solely to be angels and have that energy. And I also believe that humans and other beings can ascend and become angels later, because angels is just about having that ability and that choice to come back and be a messenger, either in light form or body form. I've met many human angels in many ways. And I have also experienced light forms of angels as well. EJ, I love this woman. She saved my soul. Oh, well, only you can truly save your soul. But I appreciate it. I'm glad I just reminded you of the light within. And if you could just tap into that, it will become something that you will be in more control of and see. So blessings to you, and I'm happy for you. White Fairy Queen, I did have an Oriental dragon visitation recently, a few months ago, and he spoke to me in dragon language, which I couldn't understand, unfortunately. It was cool, though, and unexpected. Wow, that is really neat. Oh, wow, it is getting really late. This was really fun. We'll probably have to do this again sometime, but I'm really glad that we had this chance to all talk, and you guys asked some really deep questions. And if anybody wants to go through this long video, they'll get lots of information. But thank you so much for joining in, and I hope everybody stays safe, and I will see you all on the next video. Take care.